Chapter 1531, The Third Level of the Cave. Chapter 1531, The Third Level of the Cave. Atop an isolated mountain in Wu Bei's cave, the god-destroying king, a fragile-looking young man, was sitting down with his legs crossed. With a few days' time, his divine power had more or less recovered. However, the damage that his consciousness had sustained would still require a period of time to recover. At the very moment, he was staring at the new universe god ranking list. Duan Lingfeng is second, and Jian Wushuang is third. These two brats. The god-destroying king's eyes were glowing with a fierce, terrifying light. Ever since he was first in the universe god ranking list, no universe gods had made him so miserable before. Not long ago, Dongwang had also teamed up with 3 other universe gods who were in the top 20 of the universe god ranking list to fight him. However, he had killed the 3 universe gods in that match, and only Dongwang managed to get away luckily. From that moment on, Dongwang had stopped thinking of challenging him. However, at that very moment, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng's appearance had caused him to feel pressured. I hope that I can still meet the both of you on the third level of cave. The god-destroying king smiled. After that, he closed his eyes. Within a thick forest, Dongwang was hiding. He had no choice. Since he was proud and ambitious, he had offended quite a number of people. For example, close to half of the top 20 in the universe god ranking list could not stand him. Previously, he was at his peak, and he was not frightened at all. However, after fighting with and being seriously injured by Jian Wushuang, his power declined drastically, and it still had not recovered completely. As such, he had to be careful. Dongwang had also obtained the newest universe god ranking list. Duan Lingfeng is second, and Jian Wushuang is third. I am actually fourth now. Damn it, Dongwang bellowed. Even though he had already guessed that this would happen after his match with Jian Wushuang, he still could not help but be furious, and he even harbored hatred. He resented Duan Lingfeng. However, he resented Jian Wushuang even more. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng, both of you had better be prepared. I, Dongwang, will definitely not accept a position behind the both of you. There would definitely come a day where I seize my position on the universe god ranking list back. Dongwang clenched both his fists, and in no time, he continued to recuperate from his injuries. Back then, when Dongwang and Jian Wushuang had clashed, and he was defeated by Jian Wushuang, he was the first to escape. Later on, Zunzhu had also escaped. However, the both of them separated from one another. At that very moment, Zunzhu was also in a certain place in Wu Bei's cave, and he was looking at the newest universe god ranking list. With regard to the newest universe god ranking list, Zunzhu could accept it. Previously, when the Vientiane Tower placed Jian Wushuang 5th in the universe god ranking list, I was a bit dissatisfied. However, looks like I was just being arrogant. With his abilities, he has the right to take the 3rd position. As for the 5 people in front of me, they are indeed stronger than me. Zhu no longer had any dissatisfaction. He was different from Dongwang. Dongwang was totally dissatisfied being below others. However, Zhu did not have such thoughts. As long as the other party's abilities were sufficient, he would accept them. Previously, he had questioned Jian Wushuang's abilities. Hence, he attacked Jian Wushuang. However, he no longer had thoughts of fighting against Jian Wushuang. It was clear that Jian Wushuang was not someone he could compete with. Although the newest universe god ranking list caused quite a bit of uproar when it was disseminated in Wu Bei's cave, many universe gods were able to accept the rankings on it. Especially the 3 people who were the top three. The God-destroying king, Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang. The abilities of these three experts were proven with their own fighting capabilities, and there was no need to doubt them. However, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng themselves did not care about the rankings at all. The both of them were the same. They were not concerned with their reputation. They were only concerned with possessing absolute abilities. Therefore, although the Almighties, many real gods, as well as many universe gods were having a heated discussion as to who belonged in the second and third positions, they were too lazy to care about such a point. No matter who was second or third, they were not too concerned. Time passed slowly. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng had gradually recovered to their peak. Finally, 1 month's time was up. Buzz, buzz. Space passages appeared in each and every corner of the second level of the cave. Those space passages led to the third level of Wu Bei's cave. Let's go. Let's go to the third level. The most valuable treasure in Wu Bei's cave, as well as opportunities, are in the third level. Let's hurry, over quickly. Many universe gods who had completed their preparations a long time ago moved their bodies and headed into the space passage immediately. With that, they entered the space of the cave's third level. Naturally, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng did not hesitate, and they entered the third level space too. The third level was a spacious, open land. The open land was not very big, and it was hundreds of miles wide at best. However, rays of lights glowed, and a huge number of universe gods appeared in the open land at the same time. From the time Wu Bei's cave had opened to the present, more than 100,000 universe gods had entered Wu Bei's cave. Even though quite a number of universe gods had fallen after the crazy massacre on the first and second level, there were still a little more than 100,000 universe gods remaining. At that moment, the 100,000 universe gods had gathered on the open land at the same time. What's going on? He actually gathered all of us here. How exactly do we compete for the white blaze fruit tree? Many universe gods revealed a puzzled expression. Within the crowd, there were naturally some people who were more conspicuous. For example, God-destroying king. He was standing in the center of the open land, quietly. At the start, there were a large number of universe gods surrounding him. However, as soon as he made a move, all the universe gods surrounding him, including an expert in the universe god ranking list, were all frightened away. Moreover, there was Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng, who stood together. It's Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. It's the both of them. Get away quickly, get away quickly. The universe gods around them also retreated to somewhere far away. Duan Lingfeng and I are not big demons who would start a massacre. Why are they so scared? After seeing what had happened, Jian Wushuang shook his head and laughed. They are not afraid. They are being respectful. The king of venomous worms' voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's head. Jian Wushuang understood. When he looked around, he also saw the god-destroying king, who was a distance away, Dongwang, Zunzhu, and many other similar people. All these experts who stood at the top of the universe god ranking list had experienced something similar, where no one stood beside them. That was the weak being respectful to the strong. At that moment, at the void at the highest point of the open land, there was buzzing and the dim shadow appeared again. Ha ha! Little kids, welcome to the last level of my cave. This level is different from the previous two levels. There will not be any killings. No one is to fight in the third level. If not only will he not able to get the treasure at the end, he will also die, no matter who he is. Chapter 1532. 3 tests, 3 chances. Chapter 1532. 3 tests, 3 chances. Real God Wu Bei's voice reverberated in the third level in the cave, and the 100,000 universe gods in the open ground were shocked. Among them, some heaved a sigh of relief. These were those who had gotten white blaze fruits in the first and second level of the cave. Then, with all universe gods gathered together, they would be besieged by a large crowd of universe god if massacres were to be permitted. Luckily, massacres were prohibited in the third level. In the void, real god Wu Bei's voice continued. On the third level of the cave, there's no fights nor massacres, only 3 tests. The one with the most outstanding performance among the 3 tests would receive a chance, and the chance naturally means a white blaze fruit tree. The universe gods on the open ground were in tumult. Test. 3 tests. I wonder what the context of the test will be. As the universe gods were talking among themselves, universe god Leng lowered his voice and asked, "Real god Wu Bei, do you mean the final chance will be decided according to our overall performance in the 3 tests?" No, real god Wu Bei shook his head. "You misunderstood me. I mean, there will be 3 tests, and the one who performs the best in every test will receive 1 chance. In other words, 3 tests and 3 chances. Naturally, there are 3 white blaze fruit trees." What? The universe gods on the open ground were stunned. 3 white blaze fruit trees. Jian Wushuang's eyes opened in surprise. In the lofty hall outside the cave. Impossible. Fake. Real god Wu Bei is lying. 3 white blaze fruit trees. Is he joking? The experts in the hall, including the 20 almighties, stood up in surprise. 3 white blaze fruit trees. One must know, from the ancient times till then, there had only been 2 white blaze fruit trees in eternal chaotic world. The first tree was from the ancient times, which had been destroyed long ago. The second tree was the one that fell into real god Wu Bei's hands during the crazy fight. Back then, for the sapling of the white blaze fruit tree, many almighties had participated in the fight. There were even almighties that had died from the fight. But then, real god Wu Bei said that he had 3 white blaze fruit trees. Hurry up and ask if he really has 3 white blaze fruit trees. If yes, ask how he got the other 2 trees. The red-haired elderly immediately sent in a message. On the open ground of the 3rd level of the cave. Real god Wu Bei, you really have 3 white blaze fruit trees. Universe god Leng asked suspiciously. Of course, otherwise, with only 1 white blaze fruit tree, how could I nurture so many white blaze fruits in such a short period of time? You must know that the total of white blaze fruits that appeared in the 1st and 2nd level of the cave was about 80 pieces. Real god Wu Bei smiled faintly. As for the other 2 white blaze fruit trees' origin, I can't explain much. I can only tell you that there was an expert that helped to cultivate it. An expert that helped to cultivate it. Everyone on the open ground gasped. In the lofty hall, back when real Wu Bei got the white blaze fruit tree, it was just a sapling, and it was not too long ago. During this time, even if the sapling grew mature, it would be impossible for 1 tree to have so many white blaze fruits. Hence, he must be telling the truth, the red-haired elderly said. It is believable. It seems that there was really an expert that had helped him to cultivate 2 white blaze fruit trees. Who could the expert be? Could it be one of the few? No way. Even though the few are powerful, they might not be capable of cultivating a new white blaze fruit tree. Regardless of who the expert was, there's a great chance laid before us. Previously, I thought there was only 1 white blaze fruit tree, and the possibility of us getting it was rather low. But now, there's a total of 3 trees, and the possibility of us getting one is much greater. We shall see these guys' performance. Although the almighties were thirsty for white blaze fruit trees, they could only place their hopes in the universe gods in the cave. They could only rely on the universe gods to fight for the white blaze fruit tree for them. In the cave. I know everything that happens in the cave will definitely be watched closely by many Almighties. If so, let me tell the Almighties the chance is laid before you. As for if you can get it or not, it depends if the guys that you sent in respectively are striving for it or not, real God Wu Bei said with a smile. All right, I've said what I have to. Then, 3 tests. Let's begin with the first one straight away. As he spoke, real God Wu Bei's blurry shadow waved his hand. Virum. A boundless power concentrated in the void above the open ground. Then, there was a huge chessboard that appeared. On the chessboard, there were only black chess pieces, but no white chess pieces. There was a total of 1,000 black chess pieces. Looking at the huge chessboard, the universe gods on the open ground were shocked. What is this? Chess. This test, would it be for us to play chess? No, it's not that simple. Every chess piece on the board gives me a very different feeling. It caused a great commotion at the open ground. Jian Wushuang, who was in the middle of the open ground, saw the huge chess set that had appeared in the void above, and he stared. This is the Scattered Stars game. Yes, it's the Scattered Stars game. Jian Wushuang's eyes shined. He was not unfamiliar with the Scattered Stars game. Back when he had first stepped foot in Eternal Chaotic World and wandered in Dayu World, the master of Dayu Palace, who was a universe god in the 3rd heaven on the peak of Dayu World, had taken out the Scattered Stars game. However, the master of Dayu Palace only had the little Scattered Stars game, and there were only 100 chess pieces. Hence, there were only 100 moves. Even so, Jian Wushuang had received great benefits from resolving the little Scattered Stars game back then, especially regarding his understanding towards swordsmanship, which had advanced by leaps and bounds. Jian Wushuang had already found out from King of Venomous Worms that the Scattered Stars game was of an unusual origin. It was created by an almighty. Not only was there a little Scattered Stars game, but there was also a great Scattered Stars game. There were 10,000 chess pieces in a complete little Scattered Stars game, with a total of 10,000 moves. The huge chessboard that appeared in the void above the open ground wasn't a complete, great Scattered Stars game. After all, there were only 1,000 chess pieces. However, to many universe gods, the Scattered Stars game with 1,000 chess pieces were already unfathomable. The first test is to resolve the Scattered Stars game. Jian Wushuang's pupils shrunk. Chapter 1533, Scattered Stars game with 1,000 moves. Chapter 1533, Scattered Stars game with 1,000 moves. The dim shadow of real god Wu Bei stood high in the sky, and he was paying attention to the expressions of everyone. The first test is to solve this Scattered Stars game. The Scattered Stars game was created by an extremely old almighty. In the Eternal Chaotic World, it is extremely popular. Among all of you here, some of you must have either seen, heard of, or even tried to solve it before. The rules of this Scattered Stars game are simple. There are 1,000 black chess pieces on the chessboard, and this is equivalent to 1,000 moves. Every move is a test. I will give all of you 100 years' time. After 100 years, the person who is able to resolve the greatest number of moves will be able to obtain the white blaze fruit tree of this first test. After real god Wu Bei had finished his speech, a small chessboard appeared in front of the universe gods in the open land. Everyone had 1,000 black chess pieces. For every move that was solved by the universe god in front of the small chessboard, one black chess piece would disappear. Let's begin. Real god Wu Bei waved his hand and said, "The universe gods on the open land sat down in front of their chessboards with their legs crossed. After that, they entered a state of comprehension. Duanling Feng, have you ever come across this Scattered Stars game?" Jian Wushuang did not rush to solve the Scattered Stars game. Instead, He looked toward Duan Lingfeng, who was beside him. I have heard of it before. However, I have never come across it, Duan Lingfeng said. Since that's the case, I shall give you some tips. In order to solve the scattered stars game, we cannot do it quickly. We need to do it step by step, and also entrench ourselves in every step, Jian Wushuang said. Since he had resolved the scattered stars game before, he had some experience and also knew of some tactics. Understood, Duan Lingfeng nodded his head. In no time, the both of them had sat down in front of their own chessboards and begun to solve the chess set. The scattered stars game. Jian Wushuang grinned, and his consciousness entered the first chess piece. Whoosh! The scenery changed, and Jian Wushuang appeared in a pale piece of land. The ground was filled with snow, and in the front portion of the land quietly stood a white-robed figure. When it saw Jian Wushuang appearing, it unsheathed its long sword, and an extremely sharp sword headed toward Jian Wushuang's throat. Jian Wushuang was already prepared. With a release of his sword light, the sharp sword was destroyed. In an instant, the first move was resolved. As expected, the first move is the same as the first move that I solved for the little scattered stars game back then. If I'm not wrong, the first 100 moves of this chess set should also be the same. Jian Wushuang giggled. Back then at Daya Universe, I had just cleared the inverse cultivation test and become a universe god of the first heaven. At that time, I managed to resolve all 100 moves of the scattered stars game. Now, I am a universe god of the second heaven, and my abilities are at the top among the universe gods. I wonder how many moves I can resolve in 100 years' time. Time to begin. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and started to solve the chess set with all his might. Since he had solved the first 100 moves of the chess set before, there was no need for him to waste any time. Thus, in no time, he began to solve the 101st move. For the 101st move, Jian Wushuang could solve it easily. Moreover, he was not anxious. He had to do it orderly and steadily so that he could accumulate the understanding of the sword principles continuously. In the vast hall outside the cave, it's the scattered stars game. The first test that real God Wu Bei prepared is actually to solve the scattered stars game. Humph, he wants to test out the comprehension level of those little kids. Many experts in the big hall were having a discussion with one another. The scattered stars game had always been a test of the level of comprehension. In the scattered stars game, one would be unable to sense the existence of any doctrines, be it doctrines that one had unlocked or the power of heaven way that one had comprehended. None of them could be detected. Moreover, unique skills and secret skills could not be used. Hence, no matter how high one's unique skill level was, when solving the scattered stars game, he would not have the upper hand. If one wished to solve the scattered stars game, he could only rely on his own weapons and understanding. Take Jian Wushuang as an example. As he was proficient in sword principles, what would be directed at him would be his understanding of sword principles. Duan Lingfeng was proficient in saber principles. Hence, what would be directed at him would be his understanding of saber principles. For such an understanding, one would need to analyze and try to figure it out continuously while solving the moves. Naturally, the level of comprehension was the most important. The scattered stars game is extremely advanced. Under normal circumstances, a universe god of the third heaven solving 500 moves within 100 years' time could be considered a top genius. However, now Wu Bei's cave has practically gathered all the top geniuses in the eternal chaotic world. As such, there should be quite a number of kids who can resolve 500 moves. With so many geniuses gathered together, resolving 500 moves alone might no longer be considered the top. Let's watch. There will definitely be someone among them who can solve 600 moves. A universe god solving 600 moves of the Scattered Stars game within 100 years' time. Only then is that considered impressive. However, we won't know how many such monsters there will be. Let's wait and see. Many experts in the big hall were waiting in anticipation. At that moment, over 100,000 universe gods in the open space of the third level of the cave were displaying their own abilities with all their might to solve the Scattered Stars game. The Scattered Stars game would get more difficult as more moves were solved with the most difficult moves at the end. As everyone present was at the peak of the universe god of the third heaven, the first 300 moves were easy to them. In just 10 days' time, most of the 100,000 universe gods in the open space had solved over 300 moves. After 1 year, more than half of the 100,000 universe gods in the open had solved 400 moves. At the 400th move, the difficulty level increased greatly, and everyone started to slow down. For example, Jian Wushuang, Duan Lingfeng, and Xianzhu, and even the God-destroying king's solving speed was very slow. Under normal circumstances, they would require a few days to solve a move. Compared to them, among the universe gods, there was one person who was very dazzling. This person was Dongwang. From the start, his solving speed was shocking. He had only taken 7 days to solve the first 300 moves. As for solving the 400th move, he only used half a year's time. It should be known that apart from him, the 7 Universe King, who was the second fastest to solve the 400th move, had used 8 months' time. As for other people, they used 9 or 10 months or even a year. For example, it had taken Jian Wushuang a total of 1 year and 4 months' time. Now, 10 years had passed. Dongwang had already solved the 490th move, and he was not too far away from the doorstep of the 500th move. As for the 7 Universe King, who was the closest to him, he had only solved the 482nd move. Moreover, it was obvious that his speed had also decreased, and he was unable to compete with Dongwang. As for the people behind the 7 Universe Kings, such as Jian Wushuang, Duan Lingfeng, the God-destroying king, and Ling Luo, they were fluctuating between the 430th and 440th move. Compared to Dongwang, their speeds were obviously a lot slower. Chapter 1534, Dongwang, who prided himself. Chapter 1534, Dongwang, who prided himself. On the third level of the cave, Dongwang's speed of resolving the Scattered Stars game was extremely fast. The 500th move, there was a sharp light glistening in Dongwang's eyes. On the chessboard before him, half of the 1,000 black chess pieces had disappeared. Then Dongwang glanced at everyone around him, especially those on Universe God ranking list. He realized that God-destroying king, who was on the first place on Universe God ranking list, was only resolving 450th move. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng were resolving the 441st move and the 447th move. The few others were roughly on similar moves. They have yet to even solve the 450th move. Too slow, too slow. God-destroying king, Duan Lingfeng, and Jian Wushuang, aren't the 3 of you at a higher ranking than I am? The 3 of you are just so. Faster and faster with every step. I already solved the 500th move. According to this speed, in the 100 time frame, I shall solve 600 moves or even 700 moves. These people will fall far behind me. The white blaze fruit tree for the first test is mine. No one can fight against me. Dongwang was smug with success, and he felt every inch a hero. Very soon, he continued to solve. He didn't know that in the crowd around him, some of the top geniuses behind him were looking at him in ridicule. In the lofty hall in the outside world, Dongwang has already solved the 500th move. It has only been 12 years. He is really quite fast. Among the Almighties, the unicorn red-haired elderly sneered. The other Almighties around him were ridiculing Dongwang too. This Dongwang, I thought highly of him previously. Even though he lost to Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang, he was still considered an impressive genius. But from what it seems now, he is just an idiot. He thought to solve the scattered stars game with only speed. A coldly elegant woman spoke. The coldly elegant woman was also an almighty. Humph, his speed is really fast, far beyond the others. However, he didn't accumulate any experience. This is just like a cultivator who took an elixir to forcefully increase his power and realm. Although the speed at the beginning is really fast, his potential was cut off entirely. I am certain that Dongwang definitely can't solve the 550th level. Hearing the coldly elegant woman's remark, the Almighties exchanged a look and laughed. Obviously, they agreed with what the former had said. Actually, he can't be blamed. Dongwang was a solo expert after all. There wasn't any expert behind him to give him pointers, nor tell him about techniques to solve the scattered stars game. Naturally, he thought it was best to solve it quickly, the owner of Sky Sword Mountain said with a smile. Humph, among the top 10 geniuses on Universe God ranking list, Duan Lingfeng and 7 Universe King have no backer, and they are solo experts too. Why did they know to slowly solve it and accumulate experience? But Dongwang didn't. It's because he was arrogant and got himself too many enemies. They knew that he took a wrong approach, but no one was willing to remind him. Plus, even if there was no one who reminded him, he should be able to tell easily. What about God-destroying King, Duan Lingfeng, and Jian Wushuang, whose comprehension levels are not on the same level, if not better than his? Why would the resolving speed of the 3 of them be faster than him? Why didn't he think about it? Idiot! He's an idiot, the coldly elegant lady humphed. True, if Dongwang were to be a kinder person and have made some good friends, the others would remind him that he was on a wrong path. Just like Duan Lingfeng. He didn't know anything about Scattered Stars game, but Jian Wushuang had reminded him right at the beginning to proceed steadily and not rush through it. In the end, Dongwang's human relationship was too bad. Every genius at the scene was watching him like he was a joke. Who was willing to remind him? They let him take the wrong route. Dongwang thought highly of himself. He saw that Jian Wushuang and the rest fell far behind him, and he thought their comprehension level was not high as his. He was a total joke. In the cave, the universe gods were trying their best to solve the Scattered Stars game. Dongwang's speed continued. In the blink of an eye, 30 years flew past. Phew! Dongwang let out a breath of relief and slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the chessboard before him that the 521 black chess pieces disappeared. The 521st move is so meticulous. It trapped me for 3 years. Dongwang frowned. He who desired to lead by a wide margin was stuck at that one move for 3 years. It naturally led him to dissatisfaction. But then he glanced at his surroundings and wanted to see how the others were doing. Then his pupils shrunk at the sight. God-destroying King, Duan Lingfeng, Jian Wushuang, including Xianzhu and the others, they have already solved the 500th move. God-destroying King and 7 Universe King solved the 511th move. They were merely 10 moves away from me. How did their speeds pick up so quickly, so suddenly? It seems that I have to speed up and quickly solve 600 moves to leave them far behind. Dongwang felt a sudden pressure. He immediately started to solve the 522nd move. But he didn't know that it wasn't that Jian Wushuang, God-destroying king or any one of them had become faster, but that he had become slower. On the 521st move, he was troubled for 3 years. But Jian Wushuang and the others, until then, they have yet to reach any bottleneck. The time continued to fly past. After 50 years, Dongwang remained at the 540th move, but God-destroying king and 7-universe king caught up to him successively. They reached the 540th move. They caught up. No. How can I let you catch up with me? Solve. Hurry up and solve. Dongwang immediately panicked. But no matter how anxious he was, he couldn't solve the move. In a few months' time, God-destroying king and 7-universe king solved the move and stepped foot on the 541st move. Dongwang, who had been leading by wide margin previously, was finally overtaken. Not long after God-destroying king and 7-universe king overtook him, Duan Lingfeng, Jian Wushuang, Xinju, Universe God Leng, Demon King Icefeather, and all the other geniuses in the top 10 on Universe God ranking list also overtook him. Then, even those in the top 20 and the top 30 on Universe God ranking list were above him too. Dongwang was dumbfounded by the situation. How could it turn out like this? Chapter 1535. The winner. Chapter 1535. The winner. In the blink of an eye, 80 years passed. Many universe gods were gathered in the open space, and the god-destroying king was sitting down with his legs crossed in the center of the crowd. On the chess set in front of him, the 600th black chess piece was dissipating slowly. The 600th move. As expected of the god-destroying king, out of so many universe gods, he is the first one to solve the 600th move. I am also an expert of the universe god ranking list. However, until now, I have only managed to solve the 521st move. The gap is really huge. Many universe gods at the open space were all gasping. Among the universe gods, many of them had lost their confidence and gave up on the test a long time ago. At that moment, they were not solving their chess sets. Instead, they were observing other people's performances. Of course, they were only observing and dared not disturb them. After all, real God Wu Bei had already said, in the 3rd level of cave, if anyone dared to make a move or disturb other people during their test, they would be killed instantly. Inside the vast hall outside the cave, many experts were having a conversation. The god-destroying king has already solved the 600th move, and he is the first to do so. I wonder how many more people will be able to achieve this feat. There are still 20 years, so there should be a few more. The 500th move of the Scattered Stars game is a big threshold. Similarly, the 600th move is also a big threshold. The god-destroying king was the only person who had passed the 600th move so far. However, there were a few people following closely behind him. 7 months later, Duan Lingfeng caught up with the god-destroying king and resolved the 600th move as well. After that, another 3 years passed, and Jian Wushuang also achieved the same feat. The first test had gone on for 90 years, and there were only 10 years remaining in the time limit of 100 years. Out of the universe gods, there were 3 people who had resolved the greatest number of moves. The 3 people were the god-destroying king, Duan Lingfeng, and Jian Wushuang. All of them were currently on the 603rd move, and it seemed that all of them were stuck there. For the Scattered Stars game, the more moves that are resolved, the harder it gets. For a universe god to solve 500 moves within 100 years, he can already be considered a top genius. As for those who are able to solve 600 moves, they are definitely monster-level existences. Such monsters only come by once every million years. However, in this generation, 3 of them actually appeared at the same time. These three people are true geniuses. The first white blaze fruit tree will definitely fall into one of their hands. However, I wonder who that person will be. It should be the God-destroying king. He has the strongest abilities. Moreover, compared to Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang, he was the first person to solve the 600th move. That might not be the case. No matter what, we will be able to see the outcome soon. If I'm not wrong, among the three of them, whoever solves the 603rd move first should be able to obtain the white blaze fruit tree. I agree. Many experts were having a conversation with one another. However, Jian Wushuang, who was in the center of the open space, opened his eyes, and on the chessboard in front of him, the 603rd black chess piece had already started to dissipate. It's Jian Wushuang. He has solved the 603rd move. It's actually him. Many almighties in the big hall revealed a surprised expression. Previously, they had thought that it was possible for either Jian Wushuang, the God-destroying king, or Duan Lingfeng to win. However, they felt that the God-destroying king had the highest probability, followed by Duan Lingfeng and finally Jian Wushuang. However, who could expect that Jian Wushuang, who they thought had the lowest probability, would actually solve the 603rd move faster than the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng? This little kid, if my guess is not wrong, he only started to use his strength after solving the 600th move. The red-haired old man with a horn on his forehead said in a low voice, "That's highly possible." The owner of the Sky Sword Mountain also nodded his head, and his eyes glowed brilliantly, be it the God-destroying king or Duan Lingfeng. Both of them only started to use their strength at the 590th move, and they stopped advancing steadily. As such, Jian Wushuang was 3 years slower than them in solving the 600th move. However, Jian Wushuang's reserve strength is obviously greater. The outcome is decided. For the first test, the most outstanding person is Jian Wushuang. The first white blaze fruit tree is his. The other almighties also nodded their heads. For the remaining 10 years, as per what the almighties had said, Jian Wushuang had reserved a lot of strength. After taking the lead from the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng, he continued leading. When the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng had solved the 603rd move, he had solved the 604th move. While the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng were still at the 604th move, he had solved the 605th move. Finally, the time limit of 100 years was up. In the end, Jian Wushuang solved a total of 607 moves. As for the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng, both of them solved 604 moves. Jian Wushuang had actually taken 3 years longer than the two of them to solve the 600th move. However, the end result was Jian Wushuang leading the two of them by 3 moves. As such, it could be said that Jian Wushuang's level of comprehension was not really a lot higher than theirs. Instead, it could be said that his understanding of the scattered stars game was a lot greater than theirs. After all, he had analyzed with great concentration and solved the small scattered stars game before. As for the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng, it was the first time that both of them had come across the scattered stars game. Therefore, Jian Wushuang naturally had an advantage. If it were his first time coming across the scattered stars game, his performance would probably be about the same as the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng's. At best, it would only be slightly better. If he could solve another move, it would already be impressive. After all, the God-destroying king and Duan Lingfeng were the kind of super geniuses that appeared once every million years. Buzz. When the time limit was up, the giant chessboard that was floating in the void, as well as the chessboards in front of the universe gods, all started to dissipate. The universe gods, who were sitting in the open space with their legs crossed, stood up in succession. Their scorching hot eyes then looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, The first white blaze fruit tree is his. He actually managed to solve 607 steps of the Scattered Stars game within 100 years. That's really impressive. The universe gods were gasping in admiration. However, there was nothing that they could do. The test was a fair competition, and Jian Wushuang had used his own abilities to outperform everyone. Hence, the first white blaze fruit tree naturally belonged to him. I have already done my best. However, the number of moves that I solved is still less than him. The god-destroying king also glanced at Jian Wushuang, and he shook his head after that. At the open space, apart from Jian Wushuang, there was one more person who attracted a lot of attention. This person was Dongwang. However, Dongwang was a complete joke in the eyes of many universe gods who were present at the open space. Chapter 1536, Strength-Oriented, Explosion began. Chapter 1536, Strength-Oriented, Explosion began. Dongwang had led by a wide margin at the beginning, but later on, he had encountered hindrances one after another. He would meet an obstacle in every move. When the 100 move time limit was up, Dongwang had only solved 545 moves. Although the result was considered good amongst universe gods, it was not aligned with his ranking on universe god ranking list. After all, among all universe gods, there were many who had solved more moves than he had, and there was a total of 57 of them. With such a result, Dongwang was so embarrassed that he wished there was somewhere he could hide. In the lofty hall. Lei Chao, congratulations. There is really a great disciple in Lineage of Star. Not only did Lineage of Star receive 9 white blaze fruits, but you also receive a white blaze fruit tree too. All the benefits are taken by Lineage of Star. Real gods from each force and sect, including the Almighties, were looking at Lei Chao. The gazes were rather complicated. There was envy, jealousy, and even greed. Being watched by the burning gazes, even Lei Chao's facial expression grew strange. He didn't reply to the people before him, nor could he reply to them. He immediately sent an update to Hall Master Yuan. Yuan, hurry up and inform Palace Master. Request him to stop his cultivation and rush here. Lei Chao sounded in a hurry. You want Palace Master to stop his cultivation? Hall Master Yuan creased his eyebrows. Although Jian Wushuang got 9 white blaze fruit from Wu Bei's cave, the Almighties won't take action against him for the few pieces of white blaze fruit without concern for their reputations, right? If it were only a few pieces of white blaze fruits, there'd be no need for Palace Master to come on his own. But the thing is that Jian Wushuang got a white blaze fruit too. It's a white blaze fruit tree. Its value is equal to a few hundred white blaze fruits. Such a precious treasure. I don't think the Almighties can stand the temptation. If Palace Master were to not come personally, I reckon the Almighties will fight over it at the very moment Jian Wushuang exits the cave, Lei Chao said. White blaze fruit tree. Hall Master Yuan was shocked at first, then quickly grew excited. Jian Wushuang got a white blaze fruit tree. Yes, there's a total of 3 white blaze trees in Wu Bei's cave, and he got the first one. Lei Chao said, That's great. Let me inform the Palace Master now. Hall Master Yuan's voice was obviously delighted. Very soon, Hall Master Yuan came before the most mysterious cave dwelling in the boundless Milky Way. Palace Master. Hall Master Yuan stood outside the cave dwelling as he bowed politely. What's the matter? There was an ancient and deep voice from the cave dwelling. This is what happened. Hall Master Yuan immediately told the story. White blaze fruit tree. The little guy from Lineage of Star got it. A surprised voice traveled from the cave dwelling. In the next moment, the entrance of the cave dwelling was wide open. A white-haired, ancient figure slowly walked out. I never knew that lineage of star had such a chance. The white-haired elderly muttered, "A white blaze fruit tree is worth a trip." Just as he said that, the white-haired elderly moved and suddenly vanished from the universe. Hall Master Yuan was surprised at the sight. He immediately sent Lei Chao a message. Lei Chao, Palace Master, has already departed personally. However, even with Palace Master's power, he'll require a few days to get to Wu Bei's cave from Starland. Tell Jian Wushuang to not leave from Wu Bei's cave before Palace Master gets there personally. Lei Chao nodded heavily, and there was a great commotion in his heart, but he looked rather composed. As for the jealous, greedy gazes from the surroundings, he didn't worry. He knew for sure that as long as Palace Master came personally, no matter how greedy the people were, no one would dare to cross the line. In the cave, the first test has ended. The blurry image of real God Wu Bei overlooked the universe gods. In the end, his gaze fixed onto Jian Wushuang, a universe god who is able to solve 607 moves in 100 years' time. You are doing very well. You will definitely get one of the 3 chances in the end. Thank you. Jian Wushuang bowed slightly to real god Wu Bei. Then let's begin the second test, real god Wu Bei said, and he waved. There were immediately a few space tunnels that appeared in the air in the void above the open ground. The second test is in the space tunnels. As for the context of the test, it is much easier than the first test. You'll see your opponent the moment you enter the space tunnel. What you need to do is to fight your opponent. The longer you last in the fight, the better. Actually, to be straightforward, the second test is to test your respective powers. Whoever is stronger will be able to get the second white blaze fruit. After hearing what real god Wu Bei said, the faces of the universe gods on the open ground grew strange. They couldn't help but look at one person. The person was God Destroying King. God Destroying King, who everyone was looking at, smiled too. Strength-oriented test. One should know that God Destroying King was widely recognized as the #1 universe god in eternal chaotic world. His strength was no doubt the strongest. The second test had yet to start, but everyone already knew the final result. We don't have to compete for this test. A test relying entirely on strength, who is capable enough to win against God Destroying King. Even Duan Lingfeng and Jian Wushuang couldn't be compared favorably with God Destroying King. Many universe gods side with emotion. If Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng were to team up, they could really win against God Destroying King. However, one-on-one, they were definitely not God Destroying King's match. Both of them had a thorough knowledge of themselves. It seems that we don't stand a chance in the second test. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. We don't, but I'd really like to compete with you in this test. Duan Lingfeng looked at Jian Wushuang. Oh. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and immediately understood Duan Lingfeng's plan. If so, let's do it. Jian Wushuang laughed heartily. In the second test, he and Duan Lingfeng didn't stand a chance. No one could fight against God Destroying King. Not for the white blaze tree, but to compete with one another. They would try their best to get through the test. In the void, real God Wu Bei spoke. In order to save time, there is no need for everyone to join this test. In the eternal chaotic world, isn't there a universe God ranking list? Whoever is on universe God ranking list can try to challenge. The rest can skip this. Chapter 1537, Last Chance. Chapter 1537, Last Chance. As soon as real God Wu Bei finished his speech, he destroyed the hopes of more than 99% of the universe gods. After all, although there were more than 100,000 universe gods present, There were only 100 universe gods with the fighting capabilities to make it into the universe god ranking list. Of course, after knowing the content of the second test, those universe gods did not hold any more hope. Let's begin. Real God Wu Bei signaled the start of the test. Boom! Frightening, destructive aura burst forth abruptly. Under the observation of numerous eyes, the god-destroying king walked over slowly. It was obvious that he planned to be the first one to take the test. In no time, he entered one of the space passages. Everyone in the open space was also waiting silently. As for what the god-destroying king had come across in the space passage, only real God Wu Bei knew about it. After a long time, the god-destroying king finally emerged from the space passage. After that, the universe gods in the universe god ranking list entered the space passages in succession. Even though they knew that did not have not much hope, they still did their best in the test. However, it was obvious that the time that they stayed in the space passage could hardly be compared to the god-destroying king. In less than 2 hours' time, most of the geniuses in the universe god ranking list had gone into the space passage. At that moment, Duan Lingfeng, it's our turn now. Jian Wushuang took a glance at Duan Lingfeng, who was beside him. Give it your all, Duan Lingfeng said indifferently. Definitely, Jian Wushuang grinned, and the both of them moved immediately. When the two of them appeared in front of two separate space passages, it caused everyone at the open space to be in uproar. It's Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. The two of them actually planned to go together. Could it be that they wished to use this test to have a showdown? That's highly possible. They are second and third on the universe god ranking list, respectively. However, there is still a debate going on regarding their abilities. Now, are they finally going to challenge one another? The universe gods present were all filled with excitement. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng did not disappoint those universe gods, and both of them entered their respective space passages. Swoosh! With a glowing light, Jian Wushuang appeared in a vast, dark void, and in front of him stood 10 ice figures. When they saw the Jian Wushuang appearing, the 10 ice figures opened their eyes instantly, with a flash of murderous intent, then headed toward Jian Wushuang at the same time. 10 of them! Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted slightly, and his soul power burst forth at once, forming a giant, golden divine ape. When Jian Wushuang activated his divine power, 18 shadows appeared at the same time. Swish! 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 Jian Wushuang went all out and fought the 10 ice figures with lightning speed. As he fought, he realized that the abilities of the 10 figures were increasing continuously. The second test is quite similar to the lineage of Star's Supreme Tower. The only difference is that the Supreme Tower has some restrictions, and I am unable to display my full fighting capabilities. For this test, I can unleash my full abilities. Jian Wushuang giggled. By relying on his own martial art motion and sword principles, combined with his soul power, Jian Wushuang fought against the 10 ice figures. Time passed by. In the open space, numerous universe gods were waiting quietly. After some time, a shadow appeared from one of the space passages. It's Duan Lingfeng. Duan Lingfeng has come out, but Jian Wushuang is still inside the space passage. The universe gods present all started to have a puzzled expression. Duan Lingfeng also raised his eyebrows. However, in 2 breaths of time after Duan Lingfeng was sent out from the space passage, Jian Wushuang also left the space passage. Jian Wushuang, you have won. Duan Lingfeng looked at Jian Wushuang. I have only stayed inside for 2 breaths of time longer than you. Moreover, I am only able to stay inside slightly longer due to my martial art motion. In this test, my martial art motion has given me a lot of advantage while facing the 10 battle puppets, Jian Wushuang said. What he had said was true. In a battle surrounded by enemies, martial art motion was indeed the most important. Since he was the most proficient in martial art motion, he was able to last longer while besieged by the 10 battle puppets. However, when comparing abilities, Jian Wushuang didn't think that he was stronger than Duan Lingfeng. Perhaps so. Duan Lingfeng nodded his head indifferently and did not say much. In the blink of an eye, all the experts who were confident in their abilities had gone into the space passage to take the test. However, the result was obvious. The person who stayed in the space passage for the longest period of time for the second test was the god Destroying King. He had managed to stay a total of 8 breaths time, longer than Jian Wushuang, who came in second for the test. Naturally, the god-destroying king obtained the white blaze fruit tree for the second test. Next is the third test. Since this is the last test, this also means that there is only one white blaze fruit tree remaining. Real God Wu Bei chuckled. After his speech, the universe gods present became anxious. The third test was their last chance. If they were to miss this final opportunity, their journey in Wu Bei's cave would come to an end. I must grasp this final opportunity. This is the final white blaze tree remaining, and I must obtain it. A number of universe gods present because extremely fired up like never before. At the very moment, even the almighties and real gods from various powerhouses who were in the big hall outside the cave became anxious. Among them, there were people who had obtained the white blaze fruit before. As for the 3 white blaze fruit trees, which were the most valuable treasures in Wu Bei's cave, they had never obtained one before. Universe gods, the third test is a bit special. Are all of you ready? Real God Wu Bei looked down at the universe gods below him with interest. Many universe gods in the open space clenched their fists tightly, and their eyes were glowing brilliantly. They had already finished their preparations for the third test. Since all of you are ready, let the third test begin. Real God Wu Bei laughed strangely. In the next moment, a thick white light appeared from the edge of the third level. The white light was extremely beautiful. It looked as if it possessed an infinite amount of magical power, and it covered the open space quickly. Naturally, the universe gods in the open space were also shrouded by the white light. What is this? Is this white light a spell? It's a spell. Furthermore, it's a very wonderful spell. Quite a number of universe gods were muttering to themselves. However, in a split second, many of them realized that the scenery around them had started to change. At the same time, their eyes seemed to have become tired, and they closed involuntarily, as if they were about to sleep. However, their consciousness was still awake. Swoosh! The universe changed. When everyone opened their eyes again, they realized that they had appeared in an endless black corridor. Chapter 1538, Void Corridor. Chapter 1538, Void Corridor. This is... Jian Wushuang was in the dark corridor too. He was looking at his surroundings. Dreamland. Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted, and he could instantly tell that he should be in a phantasmagoria. However, even though he could tell that he was in a dreamland, he couldn't shake off the phantasmagoria forcefully. I can't forcefully shake it off then. I can only let the dreamland change freely. Jian Wushuang was certain about it. Just then, he suddenly saw the light at the end of the dark corridor, which was right in front of him. The light was very dim, but Jian Wushuang saw a string of hope. That's the exit. As long as I get there, I'll be able to exit this dreamland. Jian Wushuang had already decided. In the dreamland, Jian Wushuang would follow what his heart said without hesitation. Jian Wushuang immediately plunged directly towards the very end of the dark corridor. That very moment, Not only him, but also more than 100,000 universe gods in the third level were facing the same scene as him. Everyone fell into the phantasmagoria of a dark corridor. At the same time, they also faintly saw the light at the end of their fields of vision. Just like Jian Wushuang, the universe gods immediately understood that the light was where the exit of the dreamland located. It was also the very end of the dark corridor. Hence, all the universe gods started plunging towards the end of the corridor. In the dark corridor, their speeds weren't restrained, and every one of them gave full rein to their power. However, even plunging forward with such speed, after 1 day, 10 days, 1 month, they could still barely see the light, let alone reach it. Although the universe gods were shocked, they followed their true will and continued to plunge forward. The dark corridor seemed to be never-ending. Although the universe gods continued to plunge forward, after 1 year, 2 years, and even 10 years, the light at the end of the tunnel still didn't grow any brighter. Very quickly, the universe gods had been traveling in the dark corridor for 150 years. In the dark corridor, a purple-haired, bewitching maiden suddenly slowed to a stop. She looked at the light at the very end of the corridor, which was still very dim, and her eyebrows were tightly knitted. "What's going on? I've been traveling forward for 150 years in this corridor, but I have yet to reach the end of it, and I have yet to leave this dreamland. Could it be that I made a wrong judgment? The light at the end of my sight isn't where the exit of the dreamland is," the purple-haired, bewitching maiden thought, and she began to waver in her determination. However, just as she wavered from her action, on the open ground of the third level, the purple-haired, bewitching maiden's eyes suddenly shot open. I resolved the dreamland," the purple-haired, bewitching maiden muttered. "Resolve the dreamland? Hee, you didn't break it, but you lost the right to continue the test." Real God Wu Bei's voice suddenly rang inside her ears. He spoke with pity. "You only stayed in the dreamland for 150 years, and you're sent out. You are so fragile at heart." "I lost." The purple-haired, bewitching maiden looked at her, surrounding in surprise. She realized that everyone else was still keeping their eyes closed under the influence of the white light besides herself. They were obviously still in the dreamland, but only she was awake. "It turns out that I am the first to be eliminated." The purple-haired, bewitching maiden couldn't do anything but smile bitterly. However, not long after she came back to reality, the universe gods around her woke up one after another. "What happened? Did we walk out of the dark corridor?" The universe gods were shocked, but they quickly understood that they had failed. In the lofty hall outside the cave, where all the experts had gathered, they received the updates from the universe gods on the third level who failed. Under the influence of such a formation, they fell in the phantasmagoria of traveling in a dark corridor. They traveled forward by a few hundred years in the dreamland, but had yet to reach the end. However, the moment they were in doubt by a slight bit, they would be kicked out of the dreamland immediately. The Almighties exchanged a look, and they quickly had an answer. "It's a void corridor." The third test is a void corridor that is aiming at one's mind. Humph! The first test was Scattered Stars game to test one's comprehension. The second test was a strength test. The third test is a mental test. This madman Wu Bei is trying to picking his own disciple. Many experts in the hall creased their eyebrows. They knew about the void corridor. It was designated to test one's mind. The void corridor was boundless and unfathomable. When one fell into the void corridor, the exit seemed to be within his sight, but in actual fact, it was unbelievably far away. Forget about traveling forward for a few hundred years. He might not be able to reach the end even after thousands or tens of thousands of years. The void corridor tested if one was firm in their belief. After everyone entered the void corridor, they were certain that the exit was at the end of the corridor. However, when the universe gods had traveled uneventfully over the years but couldn't reach the end, it was inevitable that they started to waver in their belief, but in doubt of their own judgment, they made a mistake. The moment they were in doubt and wavered, the test ended. The universe gods on the open ground who had already woken up traveled for a few hundred years in the void corridor. They were very determined at first. However, as time passed, they started to waver and then were eliminated. Those who were still in the dreamland naturally could stay firm in their belief. On the third level of Wubei's cave, as time flew past, there were more universe gods on the open ground who woke up. As everyone had fallen into the dreamland at the same time, the latest to wake up represented the longest time spent in the dreamland. In other words, he was stronger in his belief. Half a day later, a white-bearded elderly let out a breath of relief and slowly opened his eyes. Universe God Changqing, you woke up too? A man in purple armor next to him looked up and asked. Yeah, I had no choice. It isn't easy to stay determined as one continuous plunge forwards in such a boring and uneventful manner. The white-haired elderly smiled, helplessly. How long have you been traveling in the void corridor? The man in purple armor asked. I wrote down my travel time before I started moving forward. It should have been 1,980 years, the white-bearded elderly replied. Chapter 1539, 6 people. Chapter 1539, 6 people. 1,980 years? The purple-armored man was shocked, and he gasped in admiration. I only walked for less than 800 years on that void corridor before being sent out as I could no longer take it. However, you actually walked for over 1,000 years more than me. This is really impressive. The time in a phantasmagoria and in reality was different. The purple-armored man had walked for close to 800 years on the void corridor. However, in reality, that was only over 2 hours' time. Before even achieving 2,000 years, I gave up. This is considered nothing. The people who are still in the phantasmagoria are the ones who are amazing, the white-bearded old man said. Indeed, the purple-armored man also nodded his head, and he looked around the area. At the very moment, there was less than 1,000 people who were still in the void corridor and had yet to wake up. These people had probably been walking in the corridor for more than 1,000 years. For 2,000 years, they must continue to stay true to their own objectives and continue walking dutifully. However, this was something that even many real gods could not do. As for the universe gods who were still in the phantasmagoria, discounting their abilities, they were not weak mentally. In the blink of an eye, another day passed. Originally, there were still over thousands of universe gods remaining on the void corridor. However, this number had been reduced to 40. At that moment, these 40 people had been walking for more than 5,000 years in the black corridor. In the open space, all the universe gods who had awakened were surrounding and observing the remaining 40 people. At that moment, among the 40 people, the eyelids of one of the figures moved and opened his eyes after that. Oh, it's Dongwang. Ha! Dongwang has woken up as well. Although he is the 4th in the universe god ranking list, his mind is not very strong, is it? A number of universe gods who had woken up a long time ago sneered secretly. After Dongwang woke up and got to know the details of the situation, his expression became unusually ugly. Damn it! When solving the Scattered Stars game previously, forget the fact that I was behind over 60 people. However, for this third test, which is a test targeted at the mind, there are actually over 40 people who are above me. How can this be possible? This is impossible. Dongwang was roaring madly inside his own mind, and he felt extremely dissatisfied. However, the top experts outside the cave were not surprised by Dongwang's performance in the third test at all. Although Dongwang's abilities are not too bad, his mind is actually not very strong. For him to stay 5,000 years in the void corridor, it is already considered decent. However, it is far from enough to tally with the fact that he is ranked 4th on the Universe God ranking list. Ignore Dongwang. I am really very curious about the remaining people. Let's see who will have the last laugh. The experts in the big hall were all waiting in anticipation. Time passed by gradually. Universe gods who could no longer take the dullness of walking for years woke up in succession. Another day passed. Out of the 100,000 universe gods who were at the third level of the cave, there were only 6 people remaining in the void corridor. These 6 people were the god-destroying king, Duan Feng, Jian Wushuang, Zunzhu, Tian Can, and universe god Xiaohou. There was nothing that could be said about the god-destroying king. His abilities had been recognized as the best. Moreover, his abilities were cultivated from going through massacres for many years. Hence, he had experienced many hardships and killings. With that, he managed to develop an iron-like mind, and such a mind would naturally be in the top few among the universe gods. As for Duan Feng, he was a person who was as cold as ice. Just like Jian Wushuang, he had grown up facing hardships such as countless killings and tragedies. Hence, his willpower was as sturdy as an ice mountain. As soon as he set his mind on something, it would be almost impossible to change it. As for Jian Wushuang, he was an inverse cultivator. Not only had he gone through numerous trainings, he had also experienced 2 inverse cultivation tests. The most noteworthy one was the reincarnation test, which caused his mind to achieve a fantastic level. Among the 3 levels of the mind, he belonged to the first level at the very moment. At the first level, he had managed to understand his own mind and nature clearly. With that, he could make decisions based on these understandings. Such a feat was considered being at the peak of the first level, and he was very close to the second level. When he entered the void corridor, he made up his mind based on his own understandings. After determining that the light was the exit, he would continue walking there without hesitation as he trusted his own mind completely and persistently. As for Zunzhu, before Jian Wushuang rose up to his current position, he was recognized as number 1 in consciousness attacks out of the universe gods. Since consciousness was linked to the mind most of the time, he would usually train his mind at the same time as he trained his consciousness. Therefore, his mind was also very strong. As for Tian Can, he was an expert who rose up quickly during the fight for the white blaze fruit at the second level of the cave. Since he got famous from killing people, he was most likely a cold-blooded person. As such, he had a strong mind and would not change his decision easily. These 5 people who were just mentioned above were top experts of the Universe God ranking list. Moreover, they were within the top 10 of the Universe God ranking list. However, out of the 5 of them, there was still 1 person remaining. Universe God Xiaohou. Universe God Xiaohou was an ugly-looking middle-aged man. His abilities were normal, and he had only reached peak universe god of the 3rd heaven. Disregarding the comparison of him with the experts of the universe god ranking list, even a random top universe god of the 3rd heaven from the open space could push him back easily. He did not have any special abilities as well. Before this test, he was a nobody and had no reputation. Moreover, not a single person paid attention to him. However, at the moment, in the 3rd test, Universe God Xiaohou, who was an extremely ordinary person, had actually walked with the 5 great experts, namely the god-destroying king, Duan Feng, Jian Wushuang, Zunzhu, and Tianzhu, to the very end. At that moment, he actually stood side by side with the 5 great experts. This was something that had never crossed anyone's mind. Amidst the vast hall, at the very moment, many almighties and real gods from various big powerhouses had very puzzled expressions. Most of them had lost the right to fight for the white blaze fruit tree. After all, the universe gods under them had been disqualified from the third test. However, the universe gods under some of them were still not disqualified yet. Haha, it's Xiaoho, it's universe god Xiaoho, whom my water moon pavilion hired. A small, short, black-haired old man laughed wantonly, and his laughter reverberated across the big hall. The almighties in the big hall could not help but look toward the black-haired old man. Hey, Hun, are you saying that universe god Xia Ho is under the water moon pavilion? How could I have not heard of him before? A strong man with a tough, stocky build questioned in a low voice. The water moon pavilion and the powerhouse that the man belonged to were both on the same piece of land in one of the sanctuaries. As both powerhouses were competing with each other fiercely, they naturally knew each other inside out. Of course you would not know. Universe god Xia Ho is not a disciple of the water moon pavilion. In order to save his wife, who has been poisoned, he looked for the water moon pavilion. He then requested for a real god expert who was proficient in making elixirs to make an elixir to save his wife. However, it's a pity that his abilities were only normal, and he also did not have any treasures. As such, he could not exchange anything for the elixir. However, at that time, Wu Bei's cave appeared. Hence, that real god of my water moon pavilion decided to try his luck and sent him over. Chapter 1540, 108,000 years. Chapter 1540, 108,000 years. I was just casually saying at first. I never thought universe god Xiaoho would really come and that his mental state would so strong that he reached the final stage of the third test. The black-haired, elderly from Water Moon Pavilion said excitedly as his eyes shone. The appearance of universe god Xia Ho surprised everyone. As time continued to fly past, Ken was the first to come back to reality among the 6 finalists. Ken had already tried his best. The longer he stayed in the void corridor, the more difficult it was for him to endure. He had no alternative. Right after Ken woke up, it was God-destroying King. God-destroying King, who was the number 1 among the universe gods, surprised many as he only managed to make it to that stage. In the lofty hall, the Almighty sighed with emotion. Because of his backer, God-destroying King receives many resources. After he experienced all kinds of hardship, he became unusually strong, and his mental state is terrifying too. However, he has a powerful connection to count on. Hence, his mental state couldn't reach its peak, and he couldn't leap over. The third test continued. After Can and God-destroying King woke up, there were only 4 of them left. In the blink of an eye, another 4 hours passed, and Zunzhu came back to reality too. Since then, those who continued to travel in the void corridor were Jian Wushuang, Duan Lingfeng, and universe god Xiaoho. Universe god Xiaoho, it's your call. For your wife, you have to persist and not waver. The black-haired, elderly from Water Moon Pavilion clenched his fists as he bellowed. Just then, he received an update that universe god Xia Ho had already woken up. He woke up. The black-haired, elderly's face immediately grew grave. Then he quickly sighed and seemed to be disappointed. Forget it. I can't make a preemptive request to get the white blaze fruit tree. Plus, universe god Xia Ho did try his best. Hey, Hun, it seems that universe god Xia Ho didn't strive hard enough for you. The brawny man smiled smugly at the failure of his universe god. Humph, universe god Xia Ho didn't make it to the last in the third test, but he was much more outstanding than the universe god under your command. His wife Water Moon Pavilion would still rescue her, the black-haired elderly said in a low voice. Oh, the brawny man's pupils contracted, but he didn't say anything further. On the open ground on the third level of the cave, countless universe gods stared at the two people with bright, sparkling eyes. The two of them were the two most eye-catching ones in the third test. They were Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. How could it be? Why haven't they come out from the dreamland? It has been so long. It has already been 2 days and 2 nights in reality. It must have been even longer in the dreamland. Universe God Xiaoho, you're in third place. How long have you traveled in the void corridor? Someone asked. To be frank, I only kept on walking forward in the void corridor, but didn't record the time in detail. It should be around 105,000 years. Universe God Xia Ho replied. 105,000 years. Oh my goodness. In such boring and uneventful travel, you stayed in there for 105,000 years. Is this humane? Universe God Xia Ho stayed for so long. Then aren't Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng spending an even longer time in it? How did they do it? Is their mental strength so strong? The 100,000 universe gods on the open ground were astonished. Even God-destroying King, who was extremely strong, couldn't help but steal a glance at Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng. He was quietly looking at them in admiration. It had been 105,000 years, and they continued to persist. One should know that they had only been plunging forward blindly in the void corridor for 100,000 years. In the blink of an eye, another 4 hours passed. Then Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng reached the 3 days mark in the dreamland. Just then, the two people who stood right in the middle of the open ground that everyone was watching suddenly moved. The two of them opened their eyes at the same time. They woke up. They finally woke up. Why did the two of them wake up at the same time? The surrounding universe gods' facial expressions grew strange. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng understood, and they exchanged a look. It seems like you and I are the same. We both reached the end of the corridor. Jian Wushuang smiled and asked, How many years have you walked in the corridor? 108,000 years. How about you? Duan Lingfeng asked. Same as you. Jian Wushuang smiled. The speed didn't matter when one was traveling in the void corridor. Even if you were plunging forward at the traveling speed beyond a real god, you still had to travel for 108,000 years. But if you were to opt to not plunge forward but slowly walk, you would have to use 108,000 years to reach the end too. The crucial point was that you couldn't waver by any bit within the 108,000 years, and you had to endure the boring, uneventful torture. Obviously, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng had made it. The universe gods surrounding the two of them heard their conversation, and they gasped in admiration. 108,000 years. Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng walked in the void corridor for 108,000 years. During the 108,000 years, they weren't cultivating, but purely plunging forward. They wouldn't run into anything on their way, only a never-ending corridor. The two of them had held out to the end. The universe gods also could tell from their conversation that they had reached the end of the corridor, and they shook off the dreamland officially to come back to reality. In other words, if there were to be no end to the corridor, they could stay in the dreamland even longer. Just how terrifying were their mental strengths? If I'm not mistaken, Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng should have reached the first stage in terms of mental strength and be at a pretty high level. In the lofty hall, the Almighties started discussing. True, to be able to walk to the end of the void corridor, the lowest threshold is to achieve the first stage of mental state. Most of the real gods has yet to even reach the first stage, but they could reach this stage as universe gods. This is unbelievable. It is much more difficult than comprehending a slight bit of power of heaven way. Both Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng are monstrous. Actually, the first stage of mental state, universe god Xiaohou achieved it too. However, he should have just leapt in not long ago, and it has yet to grow solid. Otherwise, he might stand a chance to walk till the end. Regardless, the third test has ended too. It ended, but both Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng passed the test. How will they share the white blaze fruit tree for the third test? Chapter 1541, Jian Wushuang and Real God Wu Bei. Chapter 1541, Jian Wushuang and Real God Wu Bei. In the open space, many universe gods were looking at Jian Wushuang and Duan Lingfeng with puzzled expressions. Both of them had passed the third test. However, there was only one white blaze fruit tree for this test. Hence, how could it be split? I don't really care. The white blaze fruits is useless to me. You can have it, Duan Lingfeng said. How can you do this? Jian Wushuang frowned. The white blaze fruit tree was indeed useless to Duan Lingfeng. However, he could give the white blaze fruit tree to the Almighties, as they would definitely be willing to pay a high price for it. There's no changing my mind. If you think that you owe me, then I shall treat it as you owing me a big favor. If I were to ask you for help if I am ever in trouble, it's well all right as long as you don't decline, Duan Lingfeng said. Of course, Jian Wushuang nodded his head immediately. If you, Duan Lingfeng, were to be in trouble in the future, as long as it doesn't go against my intentions, I, Jian Wushuang, will definitely do my best, or even put my life on the line to help you. I am contented with this. Duan Lingfeng nodded his head, and it was obvious that he was still uninterested in the white blaze fruit. On this matter, Jian Wushuang could not do anything. In fact, even if there was no white blaze fruit tree, considering his friendship with Duan Lingfeng, if Duan Lingfeng were to ask him for help in the future, he would definitely not decline. The third test has ended. Apart from the two people who managed to win the treasure, everyone else can leave. When real God Wu Bei, who was at the highest point of the cave, waved his big hand, and space passages which led to outside the cave appeared on the void by the side immediately. There were over 100,000 universe gods on the open space. However, although most of them were a bit dissatisfied, they did not feel any attachment to the cave. Hence, they moved their bodies and left. Jian Wushuang, this is my transmission token. If you come across any trouble in the future, you can use this token to contact me. Of course, if I need your help, I will also use this token to contact you. Duan Lingfeng handed a token over to Jian Wushuang. After receiving it, Jian Wushuang nodded his head and laughed. We will see each other again soon. Duan Lingfeng's body moved, and he left the cave via the space passage as well. In no time, everyone had left. Only Jian Wushuang and the god-destroying king remained. Both of them were the ones who had obtained the final treasure. Jian Wushuang, I applaud you. You have obtained 2 out of the 3 white blaze fruit trees. The god-destroying king stared at Jian Wushuang. Didn't you get 1 white blaze fruit tree as well? Jian Wushuang giggled. The god-destroying king also revealed a smile. Indeed, he had also obtained a white blaze fruit tree, which was enough for him to report the completion of his task to the person backing him. At that moment, the dim shadow of real God Wu Bei, which was at the highest point of the cave, descended in front of the both of them. It's very difficult to move the white blaze fruit tree. Hence, I must do it one by one for the 3 trees. You shall follow me first. Real God Wu Bei shot a glance toward the god-destroying king. Understood. The god-destroying king followed real God Wu Bei to a special space to move the white blaze fruit tree at once. As for Jian Wushuang, he waited quietly. After some time, both of them came out of the special space. The moment they walked out, the god-destroying king's eyes were filled with delight. It was obvious that the tree had been moved successfully. "All right, you can leave already," real god Wu Bei said, apathetically. The god-destroying king nodded and left via the space passage. In the huge cave, only two people remained. They were Jian Wushuang and the dim shadow of real god Wu Bei. At that moment, the two of them were facing one another. Real god Wu Bei's shadow also came together gradually and became a black-clothed, middle-aged man with an evil-looking forehead. His penetrating eyes stared at Jian Wushuang with lightning speed, and he only started to speak after quite a while. "Little kid, you are called Jian Wushuang." During the 3 tests previously, he had got to know Jian Wushuang's name from the other universe gods discussions. "You should know that the reason I purposely let the god-destroying king leave first is so that you will be left here alone, right?" Real god Wu Bei's voice was a bit cold. "I know," Jian Wushuang nodded his head, "because I am the same as you. We are both inverse cultivators." "Ha, glad that you know." Real god Wu Bei laughed evilly. "The appearance of my cave has attracted many universe gods. However, I didn't expect an inverse cultivator like you to also be within the universe gods. Moreover, if I didn't see wrongly, you should still be the universe god of the second heaven, but you have a special treasure which allows you to conceal your aura." Jian Wushuang possessed a treasure that had been manufactured by the founder of the lineage of Star, and this treasure allowed him to hide his aura and even his soul power. Hence, normal experts and even normal almighties would not be able to see through him. However, real god Wu Bei was also an inverse cultivator, and they were inside his cave. As such, he was able to see through Jian Wushuang clearly. "Even though you are only a universe god of the second heaven, your abilities have reached such a level. In addition, you are also ranked 3rd on the universe god ranking list. You are even stronger than I was back then when I was in your shoes," real god Wu Bei exclaimed in admiration. He had also grown up step by step, starting from being a weak person himself. He had also experienced the stage of being a universe god. Back then, when he was still a universe god of the second heaven, he could only barely make it into the top 20 of the universe god ranking list at his peak. There was no way for him to get stronger as well. After all, there was a lot of restriction with regards to the unique skills. However, Jian Wushuang was in the top 3, and it was obvious that Jian Wushuang was more outstanding than him. "Real god Wu Bei, since you know my identity, you should also be certain that my motive for coming to this cave is not only for the white blaze fruit and its tree," Jian Wushuang said seriously. "You wish to get real god level inverse cultivation techniques from me, right?" Real god Wu Bei looked at Jian Wushuang with interest. "That's right. That's my main objective." Jian Wushuang nodded his head earnestly. Back then, when he came to the Wu Bei's cave, helping the lineage of Star to fight for the white blaze fruit, and its tree was his secondary objective. The most important thing was still himself. He needed real god-level inverse cultivation techniques. It was only with the necessary cultivation techniques that he could make a breakthrough and become a real god-level inverse cultivator. Without the cultivation techniques, he would stay at the level of universe gods for the rest of his life. Indeed, I know the real godlike inverse cultivation techniques, and I can even give them to you. However, there is a condition, real god Wu Bei said. "What condition?" Jian Wushuang questioned at once. "I want you to help me kill someone, a personal enemy of mine." Real god Wu Bei's eyes turned cold. "Your personal enemy?" Jian Wushuang's expression changed. "Who is your personal enemy, and how strong is he?" "He is the Demon Heart Kingdom's monarch, an almighty who rules many holy kingdoms. Real God Wu Bei said in a low voice. He and I have a huge score to settle. When I was alive, there were numerous times that I wanted to kill him. However, I couldn't do it as his abilities were slightly stronger than mine. Moreover, his background is powerful. Until the day I die, I still haven't managed to find any opportunities. An almighty? Jian Wushuang was shocked. Real God Wu Bei, even when you are at your peak, you are still unable to kill the Demon Heart Kingdom's monarch. Yet, you want me, a universe god, to kill him? Chapter 1542, Superior? Chapter 1542, Superior. Why are you anxious? I'm not asking you to kill him now, but later on when you enhance your power and have the capability to. Real God Wu Bei stole a glance at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang let out a breath of relief and immediately replied solemnly, Real God Wu Bei, I can promise you that I will figure out a way to kill Demon Heart Kingdom Monarch on your behalf as soon as I have the ability to. If I were to not reach that level ever, you couldn't blame me. Don't worry. If you were to never reach that kind of level, or if you passed away, I naturally couldn't pin the blame on you. Plus, at your current level, you are really far off that level. Forget about the other factors. It is still unknown whether you can become real God successfully. After all, you have one last inverse cultivation test to go through. Real God Wu Bei side. The last inverse cultivation test is the toughest test as an inverse cultivator. Although you are quite powerful, the possibility of you passing the test is still not high. Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted as he heard that remark. Real God Wu Bei, you're an inverse cultivator at the stage of real God. In other words, it meant that you passed through all 3 inverse cultivation tests. Can you tell me what the last inverse cultivation test about? Jian Wushuang asked. Inverse cultivation test, the toughest test for an inverse cultivator. The previous 2 inverse cultivation tests that Jian Wushuang had been through had brought him to the brink of death. Naturally, for the 3rd inverse cultivation test, the toughest test, Jian Wushuang was worried himself. I can't tell what the 3rd inverse cultivation test is exactly, but the moment I expose the inverse cultivation test, it will become entirely different, Real God Wu Bei explained. However, I can tell you that when it comes to my 3rd inverse cultivation test, everything that I went through still strikes fear in me now. Plus, because of the inverse cultivation test, it caused a drastic change in my temperament. Hence, the people in eternal chaotic world treat me as a madman. Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were tightly knitted. The 3rd inverse cultivation test had made Real God Wu Bei so terrified, and his temperament underwent a drastic change. Just how scary was the test? Jian Wushuang muttered. Real God Wu Bei didn't explain much, but extended his hand and took out a gray stone bead. Huh. Jian Wushuang looked, and his gaze instantly fixed onto the gray stone bead. He wasn't unfamiliar with the gray stone bead. When he had received the heavenly creation skill, previously it was contained in the gray stone bead. Jian Wushuang had yet to find out what material the stone bead was made out of. The inverse cultivation skill of real God level, also the 6th step of inverse cultivation, is stored in the stone bead. Real God Wu Bei smiled and passed the gray stone bead to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang took the gray stone bead and swept his soul power over it. He was delighted. The 6th step of cultivation strength. Jian Wushuang's eyes were twinkling with joy. I only have the 6th step of cultivation strength. I cultivated to the extreme limit of a real God with this skill when I was live. However, as I couldn't get my hands on the 7th step of cultivation strength, which is the one that equals the skill of an almighty, I have trapped it there. I didn't even break through when I died. Real God Wu Bei side. Even real God Wu Bei couldn't find the 7th step of cultivation strength could it be that the seventh step of cultivation, strength, never existed? Jian Wushuang frowned. That's not it. I know who carries the seventh step of cultivation strength, but that person, he's too aloof. Forget about me. Many almighties who are much stronger than I am aren't even qualified to see him. I naturally don't stand a chance. I don't even have the chance to get in touch with him. How can I ask him to pass me that skill? Real God Wu Bei smiled bitterly. Is that so? Jian Wushuang nodded in silence. Jian Wushuang, if you were to reach the level I was at before I died one day, you could ask any almighty who is stronger. Any almighty who is strong will know who has the seventh step of cultivation strength. Real God Wu Bei asked. I understand. Jian Wushuang understood. Then real God Wu Bei flipped his palm, and two dark, mysterious rings appeared in his hand. Senior Wu Bei, what's this? Jian Wushuang looked at the two rings suspiciously. These two rings contain a white blaze fruit tree each. I gave God-destroying King one just now for him to leave first. Hence, I did some tricks, real God Wu Bei said. A white blaze fruit trees in these two rings? How is it possible? Jian Wushuang was amazed. He could tell that the black rings should be Qiankuan rings. Although there was storage space in a Qiankuan ring, it was used to keep various kinds of treasures. However, treasures were treasures. They were dead objects. But white ablaze fruit tree was a true living thing. It possessed life force. In eternal chaotic world, whatever life force, such as human cultivators, exotic beasts, they were alive. How could they be kept in Qiankuan ring? Even the natural treasures had to be plucked and cut off from their life force before storing them in Qiankuan ring. But then, the two Qiankuan ring. Why? You find it unbelievable, right? Real God Wu Bei looked at him with a smile. When I first received these few rings, I was astonished too. However, such a Qiankuan ring existed, and it was made by a superior personally back when the Almighties were fighting over the white blaze fruit tree and had an insane fight. The reason they couldn't call the match was that the procedure was very complicated to maintain the white blaze fruit tree's life force when they wanted to transplant it. But it was different for me. I took the entire plot of land that cultivated the sapling of white blaze fruit into the ring, while the Almighties could only watch me. No wonder real God Wu Bei, you can take away the sapling of white blaze fruit so openly before the Almighties. This is why, huh? Jian Wushuang complimented, and then asked, you said that these few rings were made by a superior. Would this superior be the one that helped you nurture the other two white blaze fruit trees? Yes, it's him. Actually, not only the ring and the nurturing of white blaze fruit tree, even the restriction in my cave is set up by him. Because of the existence of the restriction, the Almighties outside can't enter. Real God Wu Bei smiled. Even the restriction is set up by the superior? Who exactly is this superior? Jian Wushuang asked curiously. I don't know his exact identity, nor do I know his actual power. I only know that he is very good at making weapons, formation, and many realm techniques. Even many Almighties who specialized in weapon making and formation couldn't be compared to him favorably. He is definitely one of the most mysterious people I've seen all my life, real God Wu Bei said. Jian Wushuang was stunned when he heard it. Chapter 1543, The Arrival of the Palace Master. Chapter 1543, The Arrival of the Palace Master. He was exceptionally talented in manufacturing weapons and using spells of many realms. Moreover, he was also very mysterious. This caused Jian Wushuang to think of his own master, Xian Yi, instantly. Similarly, his master's background was extremely mysterious. Moreover, his master was also very proficient in manufacturing weapons, using spells, as well as in many other areas. He was very similar to the great person, real God Wu Bei mentioned. Could it be Master? Jian Wushuang frowned. However, he was unable to confirm it. It might just be a coincidence. However, it might also be him. If the great person who real God Wu Bei had mentioned were really his master Xian Yi, then he would indeed be extremely mysterious. No matter what, I have no way of finding out if that person is my master. Jian Wushuang shook his head and stopped thinking about it. I have given you all the things that you wanted. Remember our agreement. When you have the ability, please help me to kill the Demon Heart Kingdom's monarch. Now please go. Real God Wu Bei said. Jian Wushuang's eyes squinted, and he glanced at real God Wu Bei deeply. After that, he gave a bow and entered the space passage which led to the outside world. With Jian Wushuang leaving, only real God Wu Bei was left in the big cave. As real God Wu Bei stood in his position, he raised his eyes and looked up at the heavens. Ha! All of a sudden, an insane laugh could be heard from real God Wu Bei, and it shook the universe. Old bastard! I have done what you wanted me to do. Hence, I, Wu Bei, no longer owe you anything. Ha! A mad laugh resounded within the whole cave, and the enormous cave also started to shake with laughter. At the next moment, the whole cave started to collapse. As for real God Wu Bei, who was in the cave, he was completely swallowed by the collapsed cave, and his figure dissipated slowly. Outside Wu Bei's cave, the vast hall was still floating in the sky of the island. Inside the big hall, many experts had gathered. However, at that very moment, the eyes of the experts were focused on Lei Chao. 2 white blaze fruit trees had been obtained by that little kid from the lineage of Star. Where did the insane luck of the lineage of Star come from? With so many experts as well as a few almighties staring at him, even Lei Chao felt fearful. However, at that moment, swish, another shadow appeared out of thin air from within the big hall. It was a silvery, white-haired old man. His face was old, and his aura was very normal. Hence, he looked like an ordinary old man. However, when this old man appeared, many experts in the vast hall went silent immediately. The eyes of the almighties also focused on the old man at once. As for Lei Chao, who had felt a bit fearful moments ago, he became delighted when the old man arrived. Palace Master, Lei Chao appeared in front of the silvery, white-haired old man immediately and greeted him respectfully. It's the founder of the lineage of Star. The Star's old monster. This old bastard actually came personally. A number of almighties frowned. However, they also knew that Jian Wushuang had obtained 2 white blaze fruit trees from Wu Bei's cave. Since this was such a big matter, it would naturally cause the founder of the lineage of Star to be alarmed. Therefore, the founder of the lineage of Star ought to come personally. You may stand up. The silvery, white-haired old man who was the Star Palace master glanced at Lei Chao and questioned him at the same time. Where's the little kid from my lineage of Star? He is still inside Wu Bei's cave and is about to come out soon, Lei Chao said immediately. Okay. The Star Palace master nodded. After that, he looked toward the almighties, who were at the front of the big hall. Ha! Long time no see, Star Old Monster. A hearty laugh came from the center of the big hall from the red-haired old man who had a horn on his forehead. Quite a number of almighties beside him stood up as well. However, apart from the red-haired old man, when the other almighties looked at the Star Palace Master, it was obvious that they were looking at him with respect. Similar to universe gods and real gods, there were weak and strong almighties. There were 20 almighties present, and this was considered a lot. However, among them, only the red-haired old man could compete with the Star Palace Master. As for the other almighties, such as the owner of the Sky Sword Mountain and Tower Master Chi Fu, they were weaker than the Star Palace Master. Huiyu, you're here as well? The Star Palace Master looked at the red-haired old man. I just happened to be in the Red Dragon Sanctuary during this period of time. After I knew about the appearance of Wu Bei's cave, I hurried over to take a look. The red-haired old man, Huiyu, giggled, "Star, come and take a seat." With a wave of Huiyu's hand, a long, narrow table appeared beside him immediately. The Star Palace Master did not stand on ceremony. With a flash of his body, he appeared in front of the long, narrow table and sat down straight away. "Star, that little kid from your lineage of Star has indeed brought you credit. With so many universe gods fighting for the 3 white blaze fruit trees, he still managed to obtain 2 of them in the end. We are all really envious of you," Huiyu gasped in admiration. This little kid's luck is indeed not too bad. However, as he had obtained 2 white blaze fruit trees, there's no avoiding the attention of people with hidden agendas. Hence, I have to rush over personally to bring him back, the Star Palace Master said nonchalantly. As soon as his words left his mouth, the expressions of quite a number of almighties in the area changed slightly. Before this, there were indeed some people among the almighties who had had their eyes set on Jian Wushuang. After all, 2 white blaze fruit trees were extremely attractive. However, at the very moment, with the arrival of the Star Palace Master, those people had dropped the idea at once. They had no guts to snatch items away from the Star Palace Master. Moreover, they did not have the ability to do so either. "Ha! Don't be so blunt. As long as everyone understands," Huiyu chuckled. "Oh, right, that little kid of your lineage of Star should be coming out of the cave soon." "Understood." The Star Palace Master nodded his head. With a flash of thought in his mind, an invisible seal appeared beside him, and Huiyu immediately. The invisible seal was merely a technique used to prevent others from hearing their conversation. "Star, could it be that you wish to tell me something, such that you have placed a protective screen on the time and space around us?" Huiyu looked toward the Star Palace Master with surprise. "Indeed, I need your help with something." The Star Palace Master spoke. "What's wrong?" Huiyu questioned. "When the little kid of my lineage of Star comes out, no matter what you see from him, please don't mention anything," the Star Palace Master said. "Oh." Huiyu raised his eyebrows. "Could it be that the little kid has some sort of secret?" "Please, just tell me whether you agree to it or not," the Star Palace Master said. "Ha! After hearing such things from you, I am now very curious about that little kid. Don't worry. Since you have asked me personally, I will naturally not decline, no matter what I manage to see later. I will not say anything." Huiyu laughed. Chapter 1544. Deal. Chapter 1544. Deal. The experts in the hall were still waiting. However, as the Star Palace Master came personally, there was no one who dared to plot against Jian Wushuang anymore. Very soon, Jian Wushuang came out from the cave. On the island, at the entrance of Wu Bei's cave, Jian Wushuang leapt out along with a flash of light. Just as he leapt out of the cave, the entrance behind him immediately shook and collapsed entirely. Wu Bei's cave then vanished into thin air. Jian Wushuang only shook his head in silence when he saw what happened. "Jian Wushuang." Lei Chao instantly sent him a message. "Did you see the palace above you? Hurry up and come over." Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate, but plunged towards the palace and appeared in the lofty hall. Once Jian Wushuang had appeared in the lofty hall, he instantly felt the bold, vigorous auras in the hall. Every single aura was terrifyingly strong, especially those seated in the higher areas in the hall. The casually spread aura was already suffocating him. These people Jian Wushuang looked at the people around him, and he felt dreadful. He knew clearly that anyone at the scene could kill him easily. These people were looking him up and down too. That made Jian Wushuang even more horrified. Jian Wushuang, hurry! Come in, great palace master. Lei Chao's voice was heard. Palace master? Jian Wushuang was stunned and followed Lei Chao's guidance. He immediately looked at the white-haired elderly in the middle of the hall. Greetings, palace master. Jian Wushuang immediately bowed and let out a breath of relief from the bottom of his heart. It turned out that palace master came personally. I guess I don't have to worry much. Get up, Star Palace Master waved, and Jian Wushuang stood up. The fiery-haired elderly next to Star Palace Master, Huiyu, looked at Jian Wushuang with a strange look in his eyes. This aura, universe god in the second heaven? Huiyu was surprised, but he instantly understood. Ha ha, old monster of Star Palace. I finally know this young man's secret. Ha ha. Huiyu laughed heartily. However, due to the restriction of the surrounding void, the people around them, including the Almighties, didn't know what he was talking about. Huiyu was one who was on equal footing as the Star Palace Master. The treasure that the Star Palace Master had made personally could conceal Jian Wushuang's aura from everyone else at the scene, including the Almighties, but not him. He definitely could tell Jian Wushuang's ins and outs then. He could tell that Jian Wushuang was merely a universe god in the second heaven, but people treated him as universe god in the third heaven because of a treasure on him that concealed his aura. As a universe god in the second heaven, he was so powerful, and he was in the top 3 on the universe god ranking list. No ordinary cultivator would be able to do that. There was only one kind of person who can do that. An inverse cultivator. An inverse cultivator, like real god Wu Bei. Huiyu was certain that Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator. Huiyu, do you remember what you promised me earlier? Star Palace Master glanced at Huiyu. Of course I do. Huiyu smiled. For white blaze fruits, and I will keep this young man from Lineage of Stars secret. I'll never leak his identity as an inverse cultivator to anyone in the future. How about that? 4. Star Palace Master squinted his eyes. You're good at taking advantage. Ha! Ha! It's only 4 white blaze fruits. Jian Wushuang got 9 of them in the cave, and also 2 white blaze fruit trees. With the 2 white blaze fruit trees, you can have however many white blaze fruits you want. What are 4 pieces to you? Huiyu laughed. The Star Palace Master was on friendly terms with him, but that didn't change the fact that he took advantage of the Star Palace Master. Plus, 4 pieces of white blaze fruits were really nothing much from the harvest that Jian Wushuang had got from Wu Bei's cave. 4 pieces of white blaze fruits. Deal. The Star Palace Master agreed, directly. Great. Huiyu's smile grew even wider. The people in the surroundings could see Huiyu talking to Star Palace Master, and they seemed to reach a mutual agreement, but they didn't know the context of their agreement. Jian Wushuang, pass me the white blaze fruit trees. Star Palace Master looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate and immediately took out the 2 special rings that he had gotten from Wu Bei's cave. He looked at the 2 rings and the surrounding experts, including the Almighties. There was a glimpse of heat in their eyes, but they pressed it down forcefully. The rings are quite interesting. I wonder how Wu Bei got them. Star Palace Master briefly glanced at the rings and pocketed them. Pass me the 4 pieces of white blaze fruits that you got from Wu Bei's cave, Star Palace Master said again. Jian Wushuang immediately took out 4 pieces of white blaze fruit. Star Palace Master passed the 4 pieces of white blaze fruits to Huiyu. Jian Wushuang, do you have any other matter to deal with? If not, follow me back to Lineage of Star. Star Palace Master looked at him. Palace Master, please hold on for a while. Jian Wushuang replied, and came before an Almighty before everyone's watch. The Almighty was naturally the owner of Sky Sword Mountain. Senior Sky Sword, previously you told Mr. Lei Chao to send me a message. I wonder, does it still count? Jian Wushuang asked politely. Of course it counts. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain smiled. When the fight is over, I said that as long as you offered me 2 white blaze fruits, you, who I once imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, could release anyone you wished. Here are 2 pieces of white blaze fruits. I'd like Senior Sky Sword to release Fiery King from Sky Sword Prison. Let him be free. Jian Wushuang took out 2 white blaze fruits. Ha, no problem. When I return, I shall release him immediately without any delay. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain was delighted. Please tell him to send me a message when he gets released, Jian Wushuang said as he let out a breath of relief. Fiery King, also the founder of Lineage of Scarlet. The secret skill of Scarlet Kingdom was created by Fiery King himself. Previously, when he was imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, Fiery King took good care of him, and Jian Wushuang was grateful. He wanted to rescue Fiery King. Then, he had finally made the owner of Sky Sword Mountain release Fiery King. He considered himself to be removing a thorn in his heart. 2 pieces of white blaze fruit in exchange for the freedom of a first-stage real god. Sky Sword, you made quite a good deal. Huh. Star Palace Master glanced at the owner of Sky Sword Mountain. The owner of Sky Sword Mountain smiled, awkwardly. However, Star Palace Master didn't worry much about him, and left with Jian Wushuang and Lei Chao soon after. Chapter 1545. Things have settled down. Chapter 1545. Things have settled down. It had ended. The crazy fight that was participated in by many top universe gods in the eternal chaotic world had finally come to an end. Many universe gods who had participated in the fight left with sadness. During the crazy fight, some people had died without experiencing anything big, while some people had trampled on the bodies of others and got a reputation for themselves. During this fight, Jian Wushuang was one of the most dazzling figures. In particular, Jian Wushuang had obtained 2 white blaze fruit trees and 9 white blaze fruits alone. This has allowed the Lineage of Star to become the biggest winner of the fight this time around. His name had also reverberated across the whole eternal chaotic world again. Inside an old cave within the Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang, Hall Master Yuan, and Lei Chao were standing in front of the Star Palace Master respectfully. Palace Master, I have already opened up a standalone star in the endless Milky Way. Moreover, I have already started to set up a spell. As soon as the spell is complete, we can nurture the 2 white blaze fruit trees. As for the resources needed to nurture the trees, we have already prepared quite a decent amount, Hall Master Yuan said. We only need to nurture 1 white blaze fruit tree, the Star Palace Master said. Hall Master Yuan and Jian Wushuang became stupefied. The white blaze fruit tree is extremely precious. Just 1 tree alone is enough to make many almighties go crazy. Although the Lineage of Star is one of the big powerhouses of the eternal chaotic world, we are not strong enough to have 2 trees at the same time. Hence, I have decided to give the other tree to the Emperor, the Star Palace Master said. The Emperor? Hall Master Yuan was stunned. After that, he nodded his head. As for Jian Wushuang, he had a puzzled expression. Jian Wushuang, the emperor whom the Star Palace mentioned should be the Purple Moon Emperor of the Purple Moon Sanctuary. The king of venomous worms' voice echoed in Jian Wushuang's head. As the king of venomous worms only grew inside Jian Wushuang's ancient god body, his existence was not known even to the Star Palace Master. The Purple Moon Emperor is equivalent to the Master of the Purple Moon Sanctuary. He is a super expert who stands at the top of the Almighties in the eternal chaotic world. Moreover, he is a lot stronger than the Star Palace Master, as well as the Almighties that you saw previously. The Star Palace Master is really smart. He knew that with the lineage of stars' abilities alone, it would be very difficult to possess 2 white blaze fruit trees. By giving one of them to the Purple Moon Emperor, the lineage of star would gain the support of the Purple Moon Emperor. Hence, no one would dare to set eyes on the white blaze fruit tree in the lineage of star. Is that so? Jian Wushuang nodded his head. The Purple Moon Emperor, Jian Wushuang, also took note of the name. Jian Wushuang. All of a sudden, the Star Palace Master looked at Jian Wushuang. It is all thanks to your abilities this time around that the lineage of star is able to obtain these 2 white blaze fruit trees, as well as a few white blaze fruits. The lineage of star is fair in meting out rewards and punishments. Since you have achieved a great feat for the lineage of star, I will naturally give you an award. Although this reward cannot be compared to the value of the 2 white blaze fruit trees, it will still be of use to you. How about this? If you need any treasures or resources, tell Hall Master Yuan later, so that he will prepare them for you. In addition, I will allow you to enter the Real God Hall every 100 years. Moreover, you can stay inside for 1 year for every entry, until you become a real god. After hearing what was said, Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened up. The Real God Hall was the most precious training resource of the lineage of star, and it was extremely useful to universe gods. However, it was not easy to open the Real God Hall, as every opening would require a huge price to be paid. Hence, in the lineage of star, even if it were the Star Palace disciples, it was not easy for them to enter the Real God Hall for comprehension. For example, when Jian Wushuang had risked his life to complete the ultimate disciple task previously, his total award had only amounted to 3 months in the Real God Hall. But what about that very moment? He could enter the Real God Hall every 100 years. Moreover, he could stay for a year for each entry. What great treatment was that? Jian Wushuang, your talents knows no limit, and there might be some hope for you to become another Almighty of the lineage of star in the future. Thus, the lineage of star will do its utmost best to help you grow. However, before this, there will still be a long journey ahead of you. The more noteworthy one is at the very moment. Your inverse cultivation test for the 3rd heaven should be quite close to you. The Star Palace Master looked at Jian Wushuang. If you clear this final inverse cultivation test for the last heaven, you will rise to the top at one go. However, if you were to fail, there would be no more hope for you forever. Remember, you must be extremely careful. Understood. Jian Wushuang nodded his head seriously. He himself was very clear that the inverse cultivation test for the 3rd heaven was his final test, as well as one of his greatest obstacles. This obstacle was extremely important. You may leave now. The Star Palace Master waved his hands. At once, Jian Wushuang, Hall Master Yuan, and Lei Chao bowed and left. After leaving the cave, the 3 of them stood in the endless Milky Way. Jian Wushuang, I have passed the Palace Master's words down. From now on, you can enter the Real God Hall once every 100 years. Moreover, if you need any resources or treasures, you can tell me directly, and I will do my best to help you get them. Hall Master Yuan said. Understood. Thank you very much, Hall Master Yuan. Jian Wushuang laughed. No need to stand on ceremony. By the way, did you get what you wanted from Wu Bei's cave? Hall Master Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang. What he was asking about was naturally the method of the inverse cultivator's 6th step. I got it. Jian Wushuang giggled. That's good. Continue your training. Tell me when the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven is here so that I can help you to prepare, Hall Master Yuan said. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. After that, he headed to his own sword star. At the sword star, Qiu, this Qian Kuan ring, has quite a few training resources. Please share it with your sisters. For the next period of time, I will probably be staying in the lineage of star. If you have questions that you don't understand, you can come and ask me. Jian Wushuang was looking at the maids who were below him. Thank you very much. Qiu and the maids were all extremely delighted. As the sword star master, Jian Wushuang treated the maids under him quite well. He would help if he could. Moreover, he would give them some training resources occasionally. For Jian Wushuang, the training resources that he gave randomly were enough to cause Qiu and the rest of the maids to be over the moon. Inside a secret room, Jian Wushuang was sitting down alone with his legs crossed. From the journey to Wu Bei's cave this time round, I have benefited greatly. In addition, my soul power has risen greatly as well. For the abilities of a universe god of the second heaven, like me, to reach such a level is already very impressive. If I wish to continue getting stronger, I can only improve my comprehension toward the heaven's way at best. Jian Wushuang was quite helpless as well. In the end, he was only a universe god of the second heaven. Hence, his abilities were restricted. I wonder when the inverse cultivation test for the third heaven will come. Will it be soon? Chapter 1546. There's news. Chapter 1546. There's news. Jian Wushuang stayed in lineage of star since then. He never paid attention in cultivation as his power had reached a bottleneck. The only thing he could do was improve his comprehension towards reincarnation doctrine and space-time doctrine. However, such comprehension didn't require him to cultivate in seclusion, but natural comprehension in a relaxed state would have a better effect. Jian Wushuang stayed in Sword Star and drank with Leng Feibai, Longya and a few others occasionally. Sometimes he would give pointers to Qiu and the other maidservants regarding cultivation. Every 100 years, he would visit Real God Hall, and he would stay in there for a year. The time flew past. It had been 1,800 years in the blink of an eye. In the 1,800 years, Jian Wushuang lived at ease. In the 1,800 years, he stayed in lineage of star and never left. Real God Hall. The entrance suddenly opened, and Jian Wushuang, who had comprehended in it for a year, slowly exited. After he exited Real God Hall, Jian Wushuang let out a heavy sigh. As expected, ever since my comprehension towards space-time doctrine reached the standard of passing the first level of Doctrine Palace, my comprehension towards the power of Heaven Way has stopped entirely. Even after I comprehended in Real God Hall for a year, there wasn't much improvement. Jian Wushuang felt helpless. He knew since long ago that with his improvement in comprehension, his speed of improvement was as slow as a snail, even with the assistance of Real God Hall. 100 years ago, also 100,700 years after he had come back from Wu Bei's cave, his comprehension towards space-time doctrine already reached the standard of the first level of Doctrine Palace. After reaching that standard, he had no space for improvement in terms of comprehension towards power of Heaven Way. For the past century, there was no improvement in both reincarnation doctrine and space-time doctrine. I'm still restricted by my realms. As universe god in the second heaven, Jian Wushuang sighed emotionally. In his current state, he had even reached the limit of unique skill that his realm could be at. It was the same in terms of soul strength. Then, even his comprehension towards power of Heaven Way had reached the limit of a universe god in the second heaven. In other words, unless he passed his third inverse cultivation test and become a universe god in the third heaven, he wouldn't improve at all in terms of his power. Many years passed, but the third inverse cultivation test never came. There weren't even any signs of it coming. Regarding that, Jian Wushuang was rather helpless too. He could only sit and wait patiently. Lineage of Star. In the rolling palaces, Jian Wushuang was walking alone, slowly. On the way, he met many disciples of Lineage of Star. The disciples were discussing him quietly as they looked at him with admiration. One should know that for the past 1,800 years, the brand new universe god ranking list and the incident in Wu Bei's cave had spread like wildfire. As the most eye-catching person in Wu Bei's cave and the third ranked on universe god ranking list, Jian Wushuang was naturally the disciples' role model. There were even many disciples of Lineage of Star who treated Jian Wushuang as the pride of Lineage of Star. After all, ever since Star Palace Master had started Lineage of Star, Jian Wushuang had been the first to get listed in the top 3 on Universe God ranking list. But what they didn't know was that he was deeply distressed that his third inverse cultivation test had yet to come. Just then, there was a message that popped in. "Mister, the person that you asked Vientiane Tower to look for, we found a clue." Jian Wushuang's footstep paused, and there was a glimpse of light in his eyes. "Finally, there's news." Jian Wushuang couldn't help but clench his fists. 2,000 years ago, since he had been released from Sky Sword prison, he found Vientiane Tower and entrusted them to look for his wife for him, for a price of 1,000 million chaos gem. Vientiane Tower promised that they would reply to him within 3,000 years. But then, it had been 2,000 over years, and Vientiane Tower really did give him an answer. On Starland, in a secret room in the Vientiane Tower branch where Jian Wushuang had requested the task, "Mister, according to your criteria, Vientiane Tower went through 2,000 years of searches and finally found one person. It is extremely likely that she is the primordial great sinner that you are looking for." A purple-haired elderly stood before Jian Wushuang, as he said, "Extremely likely? In other words, it's not certain?" Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. "It's hard to be certain. After all, her behavior is creepy, and she won't reveal herself, nor did she fight with anyone. Vientiane Tower only found her through multiple indications. We are definite that she is a primordial great sinner, and she is a woman. On top of that, she only appeared in Eternal Chaotic World within the last 10,000 years. With these 3 indications, although Vientiane Tower isn't 100% sure that she is the person you're looking for, we are at least 70% confident," the purple-haired elderly said. Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted. A primordial great sinner, a woman, and she had only appeared in Eternal Chaotic World in the past 10,000 years. The 3 signs did match his wife, Leng Wushuang. It must be her. Jian Wushuang grew emotional, and he immediately asked, "Where is she now?" According to the news that Vientiane Tower received, she is currently in Blood Demon Church in Gong Holy Kingdom, and she seems to hold a high position in Blood Demon Church, the purple-haired elderly replied. "Blood Demon Church?" Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. The name Blood Demon Church itself indicated that it wasn't any kind sect. Blood Demon Church in Gong Holy Kingdom belonged to a strong force. They seemed to have quite a few real gods, too. The purple-haired elderly smiled. In a holy kingdom means that it is outside of 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. Soon after he left Vientiane Tower, he returned to Lineage of Star. When he arrived at Lineage of Star, he went to see Hall Master Yuan immediately, in the cave made of unique gemstones. "Jian Wushuang, it's rare that you come to see me. Could it be that your third inverse cultivation test is coming? Or did you reach a bottleneck in your cultivation and you need me to prepare some cultivation resources for you? Hall Master Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang attentively. The third inverse cultivation test never came, not even a sign. As for cultivation resources, I don't need them as of now. I came here today to ask Hall Master Yuan for a favor, Jian Wushuang said. Oh. Hall Master Yuan raised his eyebrows. He knew that Jian Wushuang's character was proud and aloof. If it was something he could do himself, he definitely wouldn't ask for the other's assistance. But then, Jian Wushuang found him. He definitely ran into trouble that he couldn't resolve on his own. Tell me, what do you need me to do for you? Hall Master Yuan looked at him. Chapter 1547, Real God Gong. Chapter 1547, Real God Gong. I wish for Hall Master Yuan to send some of the lineage of Star's real gods to help me go to a powerhouse and capture someone alive, Jian Wushuang said. Capture someone alive? Hall Master Yuan was surprised. That's right, Jian Wushuang nodded his head. The body of his wife Leng Wushuang was currently being controlled by Leng Wushuang. Moreover, Leng Wushuang was a consciousness that was given birth by the extremely evil primordial great sin. If he wished to rescue Leng Wushuang, he would need to first capture Leng Wushuang alive. After that, he would request Hall Master Yuan's help. With an almighty's power, it might be possible to suppress Leng Wushuang and awaken his wife's, Leng Wushuang's, consciousness. Hall Master Yuan laughed indifferently and asked, which sanctuary and which sect? That powerhouse is not within the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. Instead, it is at the Gong Holy Kingdom. It is also said that a few real gods exist there, Jian Wushuang said. The Gong Holy Kingdom. Hall Master Yuan frowned all of a sudden. Hall Master Yuan, is it troublesome? When Jian Wushuang noticed a change in Hall Master Yuan's expression, he could not help but ask, It is indeed troublesome. Truthfully, it is very troublesome. Hall Master Yuan's voice became low. Jian Wushuang, if the person who you wish to capture alive is in another holy kingdom, it would be all right even though they are ruled by the Almighties. With the power that the lineage of Star possesses, we could send experts straight away. For example, we can send Lei Chao over and help you to capture the person alive. Even though this is done, the Almighty in charge of the Holy Kingdom would not look for us over such a small matter. However, the person who you wish to capture alive now is within the Gong Holy Kingdom, and the Gong Holy Kingdom is different from the other holy kingdoms. How so? Jian Wushuang frowned. The lineage of Star did not have to worry about the holy kingdoms controlled by Almighties. However, why was Hall Master Yuan so concerned about the Gong Holy Kingdom? Jian Wushuang, let me tell you the truth. The monarch of Gong Holy Kingdom is a real god with abilities to stand at the top. He is real god Gong, and just like Lei Chao, he is also in the real god ranking list. Moreover, he is ranked 5th in the real god ranking list. Hall Master Yuan said, 5th in the real god ranking list. Jian Wushuang was shocked. The real god ranking list and the universe god ranking list were quite similar in nature. For one to get into the real god ranking list, he would definitely need to be in the top few among the real gods. As for real god Gong, for him to be ranked 5th in the real god ranking list, his abilities are probably very close to an Almighty's. Not only is real god Gong powerful, his way of doing things is also very unreasonable. Moreover, the most important thing is that there was once a huge incident between him and the lineage of Star, Hall Master Yuan said. What? Jian Wushuang was stunned. Real god Gong actually had a grudge against the lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang. Do you remember Ling Dan, the person who I sent you over to defeat at the Green Lightning sect? Hall, Master Yuan said. Of course I remember. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. He still remembered Ling Dan, slightly. After all, it was a match that made him famous. He had defeated Ling Dan with one stroke, and later on, he had pushed back the 7-planet palace master. With that, he had become famous and got into the 20th position of the Universe God ranking list. Back then, Ling Dan had intentionally provoked the lineage of Star. If not for you appearing and defeating him, the lineage of Star would definitely have lost its prestige. After that, I intentionally sent people to investigate him in detail. After the investigation, I realized that there were some dealings between Ling Dan and real god Gong. It seemed that real god Gong had promised to make him his disciple if he could make the lineage of Star lose its prestige. Hall Master Yuan said. This kind of thing actually happened. Jian Wushuang understood. It was no wonder that Ling Dan was so unwise back then, where he had challenged the prestige of the lineage of Star. It was all due to real god Gong's promise. Back then, real god Gong was forced out of the Purple Moon Sanctuary by the lineage of Star. For many years, he dared not even take a single step into the Purple Moon Sanctuary. As for the Holy Kingdom that he controls, the experts in the lineage of Star naturally don't dare to go there. If they were to go to his Holy Kingdom and be discovered by him, he would definitely not hesitate to take action to kill the real gods of the lineage of Star, Hall Master Yuan said. Is that so? Jian Wushuang frowned. At that very moment, Leng Rushue was in the Blood Demon Church within Gong Holy Kingdom. Apart from there being a few real gods in the Blood Demon Church, some of them also possess strong abilities. Hence, there would be no hope for him to charge into the Blood Demon Church and rescue Leng Rushue alive. As such, he had to rely on the lineage of Star. However, he did not expect Gong Holy Kingdom to be controlled by real god Gong. Jian Wushuang, it is not good to provoke real god Gong. Moreover, the Gong Holy Kingdom is his territory, and he would definitely know of any disturbances in his own territory. Hence, the real god experts of the lineage of Star absolutely cannot go there, as it would be sending themselves to their own deaths. This applies to you as well. Although you are a universe god, and that he might not kill you due to his identity, he can still order the experts under him to kill you. In any case, if you were to go there, you would face very high risks as well. Thus, you had better not go, as there is really no choice. However, you can still get someone to go on behalf of you to capture the person, Hall Master Yuan said. No, I have to go to the Gong Holy Kingdom personally, as that person is extremely important to me. Jian Wushuang said with a low voice. Extremely important. Hall Master Yuan frowned. Hall Master Yuan, there are some things that are inconvenient for me to tell you. However, I really have to go to the Gong Holy Kingdom, Jian Wushuang said. Hall Master Yuan started to mutter to himself at once. After some time, he looked at Jian Wushuang again. Jian Wushuang, it's all right if you really need to go there. I will use the resources of the lineage of Star to hire a few experts who will travel along with you to help you. Although the real gods of the lineage of Star are unable to enter Gong Holy Kingdom, we can still hire people secretly, and real god Gong won't know about it. However, you must promise me something. After reaching Gong Holy Kingdom, you have to think of a way to hide your identity properly. Secondly, do not take action personally. You can get the experts that I have hired for you to do the work. Understood. Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened, and he spoke immediately. Since that's the case, I will make a move to Gong Holy Kingdom first. I have to first clarify if that person is the person who I'm looking for. After confirming, I will inform you again. No problem. Remember that you have to be very careful. Also, isn't the real God, who you paid 2 white blaze fruits to get the owner of the Sky Sword Mountain to release from the Sky Sword prison in the Starland? You can look for him and get him to go with you, Hall Master Yuan said. Big Brother Fiery King? Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened up. Not long after the fight in Wu Bei's cave had ended, the Fiery King was released by the owner of the Sky Sword Mountain. After he came out, he sent a message to Jian Wushuang at once to thank him. Moreover, in recent years, the Fiery King also came from the Sky Sword Mountain to the Starland personally to thank Jian Wushuang in person. Hence, at that very moment, the Fiery King was staying in the Starland. Jian Wushuang sent a message to the Fiery King at once. Chapter 1548, Blood Demon World. Chapter 1548, Blood Demon World. Blood Demon World in Gong, Holy Kingdom. Blood Demon World was made of a dozen worlds, and it had a vast territory. Blood Demon Church was the overlord of Blood Demon World, the true local tyrant. Blood Demon Church could also be considered a strong force, even within Gong Holy Kingdom. Blood Demon World was one of the many worlds. In a pavilion in an ordinary city, a man and a woman sat together. The man was a middle-aged man in loose, long robe, while the woman was a beauty in a white robe. From their behavior, they should be husband and wife. Husband, it has been 3 days. Why hasn't Protector Jian arrived? The beauty in a white robe creased her eyebrows. Don't worry. Protector Jian already messaged me. He will be here soon, the middle-aged man said. I feel that Protector Jian isn't reliable. He is from Blood Demon Church, after all. The people from Blood Demon Church are all demons. The beauty in a white robe looked concerned. Shu, the middle-aged man, signaled her to keep quiet, and he said, It's okay if you say that elsewhere, but in Blood Demon World, don't speak recklessly, otherwise we might be killed. The beauty in a white robe felt her heart skip a beat. Actually, I know that there's a risk asking for help from experts in Blood Demon Church, but we have no choice. Only they can help us with the trouble we're having. Otherwise, the middle-aged man sighed and felt helpless too. If it wasn't because he had no choice, he wouldn't get involved with anyone in Blood Demon Church. Then, a few figures walked into the pavilion at the same time. The one walking at the front was a blonde, brawny elderly. Both the middle-aged man and the beauty in a white robe stood up simultaneously as they saw the people. Protector Jian, the middle-aged man greeted with a smile. The blonde, brawny elderly who walked in the pavilion glanced at the middle-aged man, and he looked calm. But when he saw the beauty in a white robe behind him, there was a change in his expression, and there was a strange look in his eyes. Ha, Universe God Chi, right? Come, let's sit and discuss. The blonde, brawny elderly, Protector Jian smiled as the 3 of them sat by the table. Then, the middle-aged man poured some wine. Protector Jian, sorry to trouble you to get involved personally. My wife and I shall raise our glasses in a toast. The middle-aged man, Universe God Chi, raised his glass. You're welcome. Protector Jian smiled as he looked towards the beauty in a white robe. After chugging the wine, Protector Jian said, Universe God Chi, the favor that you asked for is quite troublesome. Even I have to spend some time and effort to take care of it. If you really want to resolve this, you have to show some sincerity. With the agreed price, it might not be enough. Not enough. Universe God Chi creased his eyebrows. Actually, the price he had paid was already very high, but he was well prepared as Protector Jian was a man in Blood Demon Church. I wonder what else Protector Jian needs. I will prepare for you immediately, Universe God Qi replied. You don't have to prepare anything. The thing that I want, you have it right now, Protector Jian said. Oh. Universe God Qi looked confused. Actually, it's nothing major. I'd like your wife to serve me for a while. Not long, maybe about 100 or 200 years will do, Protector Jian said, casually. What? Universe God Qi's face suddenly grew grave. The beauty in a white robe next to him was terrified too. Protector Jian, your joke is not funny at all. Universe God Qi had already stood up, anger raging in his eyes. I don't have the time to make a joke with you. Protector Jian's face grew cold too. Your wife has to serve me for 200 years. Otherwise, I will not help you. Humph, you will not help. There will be other people who are willing to help. Junair, let's go. Universe God Qi pulled the beauty in a white robe by her arm and wanted to leave. Hold on, Protector Jian smirked coldly. Although the deal didn't go through, I can't be making a trip for nothing, right? How about this? The price that you offered previously, forget about it, but your wife has to stay. Protector Jian, don't go overboard. Universe God Qi and the beauty in a white robe was angry. Overboard? Haha, this is Blood Demon World and Blood Demon Church rules here. I can do whatever I like. Who can do anything to me? You should blame your wife for being so enchanting that I can't stand the temptation. Protector Jian scoffed as he stood up. Brothers, go and catch the beauty for me. When I'm done with her, all of you can take turns for her to serve you. Ha! Thank you, Protector Jian. The few universe gods who stood at the side looked excited, their burning gazes fixed onto the beauty in a white robe. Bastard! Universe God Qi was angry and his aura suddenly soared. This annoying Universe God Qi, just kill him. The few universe gods from Blood Demon Church had a sudden murderous intention and, a massacre was suddenly induced. The exquisite pavilion instantly broke into parts from the impact of divine power. Universe God Qi and the other few people's figures instantly soared up in the void above the city, and they startled the cultivators in the entire city. Husband! The beauty in a white robe had a green sword in her hand as she rushed onto the battlefield. However, although the couple were universe gods in the second heaven, their opponents were 5 universe gods in the second heaven. Plus, there was Protector Jian, who was a universe god in the third heaven watching by the side. Humph, just a universe god in the second heaven, and he wants to counterattack. Protector Jian smirked in disdain, and he fixed his gaze on the beauty in a white robe. Don't hurt my beauty. I have to take good care of her. With a malicious smile, Protector Jian moved and appeared behind the beauty in a white robe. He extended his hand to grab her shoulder. Husband! The beauty in a white robe was frightened and went as pale as a sheet. You evil Jian! Universe God Qi let out a shrill roar that shook the heavens and earth. Just as Protector Jian's palm reached for the beauty in a white robe's shoulder, vroom! A shapeless force suddenly soared over from nowhere, and Protector Jian's smile immediately stiffened. The few experts from Blood Demon Church who were besieging Universe God Qi looked terrified too. The next moment, the few persons' gazes grew dim, and their bodies fell helplessly. That sight shocked all the cultivators in the city who were watching the battle. In the void, Universe God Qi and the beauty in white robe were shocked at the sight. Chapter 1549, Elder Shuiyang. Chapter 1549, Elder Shuiyang. My husband, what happened to them? The white-robed, beautiful woman questioned, shockingly. It's an expert. An expert has acted secretly to help us. Universe god Qi was looking at the void around him. However, he did not manage to find the origin of that power. No matter who helped us, both of us are extremely grateful. Universe god Qi bowed down to the void around him. After that, he pulled his wife's hand and left immediately. The city then went into a complete uproar. A protector of the Blood Demon Church had died within the city, and this was a big matter. Moreover, the most important thing was that it was unknown who the protector was killed by or how he was killed. Many cultivators from the city had started to find the mysterious expert who attacked the protector. However, they were unable to find him. At the very next moment, just opposite the void, where the fight had broken out between Universe God Qi and the Protector, two figures were sitting down on a spot near the window in a pub. Jian Wushuang, Didn't Hall, Master Yuan of the lineage of Star remind you many times not to act unless you have absolutely no choice. Why did you act in the end? The fiery king, who had scarlet hair, scarlet eyebrows, and even a scarlet beard, looked at Jian Wushuang while laughing and holding a wine cup. I have already checked. Although there are quite a number of cultivators in this city, the strongest person is only a normal universe god of the third heaven. Hence, no one will be able to tell that I am the one who did it, Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Even if that's the case, we must still be careful. As the fiery king spoke, he exclaimed in admiration soon after. However, the Blood Demon Church's people's way of doing things is really unreasonable. They were actually snatching other people's wives without any restraint in front of so many cultivators in the city. It is no wonder that the cultivators of the Blood Demon Church would say that the Blood Demon Church's people are all demons. Looking at it now, that seems to be the case. Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. Back then, by just hearing the name, he could tell that the Blood Demon Church was not a decent powerhouse. After coming to the Blood Demon world for real, he realized that the Blood Demon Church was even more evil than he had expected. For example, a small matter like snatching other people's wives could make the Blood Demon Church's people start killing people. The Blood Demon Church still had some small powerhouses and sections. On ordinary days, as soon as they disrespected the Blood Demon Church, even the slightest bit, the Blood Demon Church would destroy the sect straight away or even destroy their clan. All in all, the Blood Demon Church was the overlord of the Blood Demon world. Such a powerhouse actually existed for so many years in the world, yet no experts acted to destroy it. The fiery king muttered. If the Blood Demon Church dared to do such things within the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, they would have been destroyed many times. However, this place is only a holy kingdom. Hence, the Blood Demon Church is considered a top powerhouse. As long as one is not stupid enough to provoke real God Gong, he would not be killed, Jian Wushuang said. However, his mind was filled with worries. After all, there was a high possibility that Leng Rushua was inside the Blood Demon Church. Jian Wushuang, what do we do now? The fiery king looked over. Let's go somewhere near the Blood Demon Church's base. I have to first confirm whether the person I'm looking for is there, Jian Wushuang said. In no time, Jian Wushuang and the fiery king set off. The Blood Demon Church's base was within one of the regions of the Blood Demon Church. When Jian Wushuang stepped into this region, Jian Wushuang's heart skipped a beat, and he took out a token immediately. It was a special golden token, and it was given to him by Emperor Tang after his marriage with Leng Wushuang in the Green Fire World back then. When Leng Wushuang's consciousness was about to go into a deep sleep, Emperor Tang had intentionally left a seal inside her consciousness. Unless Leng Wushuang's consciousness woke up and she went to erase the seal herself, it would be impossible to erase the seal even if Leng Rushua was controlling the body and had her abilities rise to a very high level. As for the golden token, it could sense the existence of that seal. When Jian Wushuang appeared in the region where the Blood Demon Church was, in that very moment, the golden token had a reaction. As expected, it's her. Jian Wushuang clenched both his fists tightly, and he was extremely excited. Previously, although he obtained the news from the Vientiane Tower, be it the Vientiane Tower or him, they were unable to confirm if the person within the base of the Blood Demon Church was actually Leng Rushue. However, at that very moment, Jian Wushuang could confirm. Shuanger, I have finally found you. Please wait a while longer. In no time, I will get your consciousness to wake up and let you control your own body again. Jian Wushuang's eyes were glowing brilliantly. Of course, before that, he still needed to be sure of the true abilities of the Blood Demon Church. As a powerful overlord within the Gong Holy Kingdom, the Blood Demon Church had quite a number of experts. Among them, those who stood at the highest level were naturally the few real gods, and below them were a few elders who were peak universe gods of the third heaven. Among those elders, one of them was Elder Shuiyang. Elder Shuiyang had come from a normal region within the Gong Holy Kingdom originally. Moreover, when he was small and weak, he had been chased around by strong enemies. As such, he had escaped to the outside world and roamed about everywhere. After that, as he had no choice, he went to the Blood Demon world and joined the Blood Demon Church with an identity as a universe god of the first heaven. With the help and the resources within the Blood Demon Church, his abilities grew continuously, and he became an elder of the Blood Demon Church in the end. When he became an elder, he lived his life comfortably. In the Blood Demon world, one could run wild, willfully. When many weak forces in the Blood Demon world were facing him, they trembled in fear and were extremely terrified of him, as they were scared that they might have offended him. Everywhere he went, people would bow to him and try to win his favor. As soon as ignorant people provoked him, he would not need to act personally. Instead, by giving an order on the second day, that person, the sect that he was in, his loved ones and good friends, would all be killed. Thus, it could be said that within the Blood Demon world, one sentence of his could decide the fate of many people. Elder Shuiyang also enjoyed the power and influence that he possessed. However, at that very moment, his good days were about to come to an end. Who are the both of you? Elder Shuiyang's eyes were filled with a bit of fear as he looked at the two people who had appeared in front of him all of a sudden. For the two people, one of them was carrying a long sword while the body of the other person was like fire. Moreover, either one of them could give him, a peak universe god of the third heaven, pressure that he never experienced before. The pressure that he experienced was even greater than the pressure he had felt whilst facing the few real gods within the Blood Demon Church. I wish to ask you something. You had better answer it truthfully. Jian Wushuang's expression was cold, and he was staring at Elder Shuiyang. I will do my best. Elder Shuiyang's throat was trembling. I know that you are an elder of the Blood Demon Church, which is considered quite a high position within the Blood Demon Church. Therefore, you should know some of the matters within the Blood Demon Church. Let me ask you, how many real gods does the Blood Demon Church have, and how strong are they? Jian Wushuang's low voice echoed in the ears of Elder Shuiyang. Chapter 1550, 3 Stages of Real God. Chapter 1550, 3 Stages of Real God. The two of them are aiming at Blood Demon Church. Elder Shuiyang felt terrified, but he didn't reply to Jian Wushuang's question instantly. He knew clearly how brutal Blood Demon Church's conduct was. If he were to expose the privacy of the internal Blood Demon Church, and they were to find out, he would definitely end miserably. Why? You're not willing to? Fiery King glanced at Elder Shuiyang. It seems like you will have to suffer for a bit. Elder Shuiyang, Jian Wushuang suddenly spoke. Elder Shuiyang looked at Jian Wushuang subconsciously and was immediately attracted by the glaring crimson light in Jian Wushuang's eyes. The crimson light was like a scarlet sun that was extremely eye-catching. 18 Azura, hell instantly descended. No, no. Elder Shuiyang instantly gave out a blood-curdling scream. He fell into the dreamland and was unable to free himself from it. With Jian Wushuang's current soul strength, it was close to a real god's dreamland when he performed 18 Azura hell with his all, and it was extremely torturous to one's body and mind. Although Elder Shuiyang was a peak universe god in the third heaven, he couldn't endure the terrifying torture of 18 Azura hell. Ah, ah. Elder Shuiyang's eyes were bloodshot, and his face was distorted in agony. He looked extremely ferocious. The entire heaven and earth was drowned in his shrill scream. Luckily, before Jian Wushuang had pulled him into dreamland, Fiery King had already set up a layer of restraint at the surrounding void. Hence, the scream never spread, and there was no communication allowed. Very soon, Elder Shuiyang walked through each kind of torture in the dreamland, and it slowly dispersed. Elder Shuiyang looked exhausted as he collapsed on the ground. However, there was still an unprecedented fear on his face. Elder Shuiyang, the earlier dreamland, do you want to experience it again? Jian Wushuang glared at Elder Shuiyang and said coldly, "Don't be in a hurry. We have time. The earlier phantasmagoria. If you are willing to, we can do it 10 times or 100 times. 10 times? 100 times. Just one time could make Elder Shuiyang close to going mad. No, no. I'll tell you everything." Elder Shuiyang shook his head and shouted. Jian Wushuang and Fiery King smirked coldly at his reply. Jian Wushuang, your torturing measure is really impressive. Fiery King couldn't hold back his compliments. In terms of power, Fiery King might be stronger by 1 notch. However, in terms of torturing measure, Jian Wushuang, who was a universe god good at soul attacks, was much more skillful than Fiery King. When he performed 18 Azura hell with his all, forget about Elder Shuiyang, even an ordinary real god might not be able to withstand it. Tell me, in Blood Demon Church, how many real gods are there in total? Jian Wushuang inquired. There's a total of 4. There are 3 first-stage Void Real God, and the other one is the founder of Blood Demon Church, who is a real god who already reached the 2nd stage. Elder Shuiyang didn't dare to hide. 2nd stage. Jian Wushuang's pupils contracted. Eternal real god. Fiery King's face grew solemn. In Eternal Chaotic World, there were 3 stages for a real god. The first stage was Void Real God, which was the most ordinary king. In 10 cultivation sanctuaries, some weaker sects were appendage to real gods of that stage. For instance, 7 Planet Palace Master, who Jian Wushuang had once suppressed, the real gods that were imprisoned in Sky Sword Prison, including Fiery God, Blood Emperor, Heartless King, and so on, they were all in that stage. However, Fiery King was considered at the peak of Void Real God. The 2nd stage of Real God was Eternal Real God. Real gods at this stage were much rarer than the first stage Void Real gods. Even within 10 cultivation sanctuaries, if an Eternal Real God were willing, he could easily start a force or sect. For instance, most of the Deacon Elderlies were Eternal Real God. As for the 3rd stage of Real God, it was known as Chaotic Real God. Those were real gods at the peak. There were very few real gods of that stage. Even a force like Lineage of Star had very few chaotic real gods. Of course, the bunch of chaotic real god at the peak were listed on the real god ranking list. Their fighting power was extremely strong. Like Lei Chao, he was one of the chaotic real god listed on Real God ranking list. For the 3 stages of Real God, every stage marks a vast difference. The eternal Real God in Blood Demon Church is much scarier than the 3 void Real Gods team up, Fiery God explained. Besides the 4, is there any other experts in Blood Demon Church? I'm referring to the kind that is always in seclusion and hardly reveal themselves normally, Jian Wushuang continued to ask. I really have no idea. Elder Shuiyang shook his head and said pathetically, Mister, although I am an elderly in Blood Demon Church, there are about 20 elderlies like myself in Blood Demon Church. We are considered higher-ups, but we have no idea about the core secret in Blood Demon Church. For instance, I have no idea if there's any hidden expert in Blood Demon Church. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and didn't doubt what Elder Shuiyang said. I have a portrait here. Take a look and see if you know this person or if you have seen this person in Blood Demon Church. Jian Wushuang took out a painting of Leng Wushuang. Elder Shuiyang took a look at the portrait, and he immediately looked shocked, but he immediately shook his head. Mister, I've never seen this person. Are you sure? Jian Wushuang creased his eyebrows. I am sure. After all, a lady that looks this beautiful, if I were to see her, I'd definitely have an impression, but I don't recall at all. This lady is definitely not in Blood Demon Church. Even if she were, I reckon she should be kept as maidservant by the people in the church. A maidservant that is so beautiful, who's willing to bring her out to share with everyone. Elder Shuiyang had yet to finish his sentence. Pack, Jian Wushuang had already given Elder Shuiyang a tight slap. Then Elder Shuiyang immediately spat a mouthful of blood and stunned. Maidservant. Jian Wushuang harumphed coldly. He knew very clearly that there might be people with great power in the world who could forcefully take control of a primordial great sinner. However, in Blood Demon Church, there wasn't anyone who had the ability to. Plus, according to the information that he had gotten from Vientiane Tower, Leng Wushuang's position in Blood Demon Church was extraordinary. You'd better think about it carefully. If you say any more nonsense, you're going to die, Jian Wushuang bellowed. Yes, yes. Elder Shuiyang nodded continuously, and his eyes suddenly twinkled. Yeah, mister. There's a mysterious person in Blood Demon Church. He might be the person you're looking for. A mysterious person? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Tell me. Chapter 1551. Leng Zunzhu. Chapter 1551. Leng Zunzhu. This person came to the Blood Demon Church more than 200 years ago. Moreover, she brought along a servant. For the past years, they have been living in the ancient demon mountain. Elder Shuiyang continued speaking. Ever since she came, the church master gave an order not to go near the ancient demon mountain. For the past 200 years, we never saw this person coming out again, although we knew that such a person did exist. Naturally, I have never seen her before. However, I can confirm she is a young woman, and our church master addresses her as Leng Zunzhu. Leng Zunzhu? Jian Wushuang's eyes shrank. It's definitely her. Draw me the location of the ancient demon mountain, Jian Wushuang ordered. Understood. Elder Shuiyang agreed, without hesitation. After Jian Wushuang had obtained what he wanted, looking at the fact that you are cooperative, I can let you die an easier death. Jian Wushuang shot a glance toward Elder Shuiyang. What? Elder Shuiyang was shocked. When he was about to say something, a soul power headed for him, straight away. After that, before he was even able to give a horrible shriek, he became an icy cold body. With a wave of the fiery king's hand, a great amount of flames appeared and burnt Elder Shuiyang's body to ashes. Jian Wushuang, Leng Zunzhu is the person you're looking for, right? The fiery king asked. That's right. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. However, she is currently staying in the Blood Demon Church. Hence, it is next to impossible for her to come out by herself. There's no choice. We can only storm in. Charge in forcefully. The fiery king frowned slightly. The Blood Demon Church has a total of 4 real gods, and among them, there is also an eternal real god. Hence, it is not a good idea to provoke them. I understand. However, the Blood Demon Church is very weak in comparison to the lineage of Star. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold, and he immediately sent a message to Hall Master Yuan. Jian Wushuang, I have already hired 3 real gods for you, and they will arrive at the Blood Demon Church in a short while. At that time, they will contact you with the 3 real gods and fiery king, who is with you. You can suppress the Blood Demon Church easily, Hall Master Yuan answered with great confidence. Thank you. I'm sorry to have troubled you. Jian Wushuang thanked Hall Master Yuan. After that, he waited quietly near the base of the Blood Demon Church with the fiery king. At the ancient demon mountain within the base of the Blood Demon Church, at the summit of the ancient demon mountain, there was a delicate black hall, and there was a white-clothed woman sitting inside it. The white-clothed woman's face was covered with a veil, and her looks could not be clearly seen. However, just her partially revealed face was enough to excite countless cultivators. The most important thing was that she was extremely cold and elegant. Such coldness and elegance was enough to captivate the souls of the people. She was Leng Zunzhu, who Elder Shuiyang mentioned. At the very moment behind Leng Zunzhu, there was a black-robed person standing respectfully, and she was completely covered by the black robe. Number 7. Please ask the Blood Demon Church Master about the progress of that matter. Leng Zunzhu asked coldly. Master, please don't worry. Not long ago, the Blood Demon Church Master sent me a message. In 10 years' time, he will be able to complete what we asked of him. A hoarse, low voice could be heard from under the black robe of the black-robed person. From the sound of it, the black-robed person seemed to be an old married woman. He still needs 10 more years? His speed is really slow. I think he can stop being the Blood Demon Church Master. Leng Zunzhu remained indifferent. It seemed that in her eyes, the Blood Demon Church Master, who had achieved the level of eternal real God, was about the same as an ant. Master, with just a request from you, many people would be willing to allow you to take over the Blood Demon Church in place of him. The old married woman under the black robe laughed. Oh, right. His Highness Mu Hong should be reaching in a few days' time, right? His Highness Mu Hong? Ha ha. He is really persistent. Did he come to earn my favor again? Leng Zunzhu laughed coldly. His Highness Mu Hong knows that the master needs the 7-star moon warbler lotus. Hence, he used his father, the 7th palace master's power, and almost destroyed a holy kingdom. With that, he finally obtained the 7-star moon warbler lotus, and this time round, he is coming over intentionally to give it to you, the black-robed old married woman said. Oh, looks like the 7th palace master really treats him like a treasure on his skin. However, it's also because of this that Mu Hong was able to live until now. If not with his attitude, he would have been killed by people many times a long time ago. Since he wishes to earn my favor, so be it. Leng Zunzhu sneered, and her eyes glowed with a cold light. After a few days, somewhere near the Blood Demon Church, the 3 real gods, who Hall Master Yuan had hired to help Jian Wushuang, arrived. Atop the vast void, 3 figures flew side by side. Among the 3 of them, the leader was a big and tall man who wore a bronze armor. As for the other 2, one of them was a red-robed old married woman, while the other one was a slightly hunchbacked bald old man. As for Jian Wushuang, he felt an extremely huge amount of pressure from the 3 of them. Gosh, 2 eternal real gods, And the last one is actually a chaotic real god. The fiery king revealed a shocked expression. In the 3 stages of real god, he was only at the top of the first stage. However, among the 3 people in front of him, 2 of them were at the second stage, while the last person was at the 3rd stage of a real god. With such a lineup, even if they were to be placed in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, it would be enough to destroy some medium-sized powerhouses that were weak in power. You are Jian Wushuang. The 3 real gods looked toward Jian Wushuang. Although Jian Wushuang was only a universe god, he was a super demon who ranked 3rd in the universe god ranking list. Moreover, he was also a Star Palace disciple of the lineage of Star. When looking at such a genius, the 3 real gods remained modest. I am Longqing, and you can call me real god Longqing. As for the 2 of them, they are real god Baiying and real god Yintuo, respectively. Among the 3 of them, the big, tall, bronze-armored man, who was also the strongest as a chaotic real god, opened his mouth to make his introduction. I am Jian Wushuang. Greetings to the 3 of you. Jian Wushuang greeted the 3 of them modestly. Hall Master Yuan has told us the objective of this trip. However, as for the details for this operation, you will be the one to call the shots, real god Longqing said. As Hall Master Yuan had given them great benefits, they had come to give Jian Wushuang a hand. For a short period of time, they would take instructions from Jian Wushuang. Since the 3 of you already know the objective, I need not say much. However, I must stress that the person I want must be captured alive. If there is really no choice, you can injure her. However, you cannot kill her. I would rather let her escape than let her die. Jian Wushuang said earnestly. The 3 real gods looked at each other in blank dismay and nodded their heads. They could also tell that the person Jian Wushuang wanted to capture alive had a special relationship with him. Also, I have obtained reliable news that Leng Zunzhu, who I wanted to capture alive, is currently within the ancient demon mountain of the Blood Demon Church. Moreover, she has not left the ancient demon mountain for over 200 years. Hence, we have no choice but to charge in forcefully. Chapter 1552, Barge In. Chapter 1552, Barge In. I had some dealings with Blood Demon Church before. Although there are 4 real gods, besides Blood Demon Church Master, who reached the 2nd stage, the other 3 are just 1st stage void real gods. With our lineup, we can easily suppress Blood Demon Church. A bald elderly with a hunchback, real god Yintuo, said. Even so, let's not let our guards down. Jian Wushuang glanced at everyone around him. When we launch attack later, real god Baiying, real god Yintuo, and brother Fiery King, the 3 of you tear the protective array apart and barge into Blood Demon Church for a massacre. The bigger the movement, the better. Real god Longqing. And I will seize the time when Blood Demon Church is in chaos to head over to Ancient Demon Mountain to capture Lord Leng alive. We retreat once we have caught her. Okay, real god Longqing nodded. You get the final say. Real god Baiying and real god Yintuo showed respect to Jian Wushuang too. Only Fiery King creased his eyebrows. Jian Wushuang, you want to head to Ancient Demon Mountain personally? He remembered Hall Master Yuan had exhorted for Jian Wushuang not to reveal himself. I am responsible for Lord Leng. If I don't go personally, I can't be at ease. Jian Wushuang replied. If so, all right then. But please be extremely careful, Fiery King said. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. Very soon, the 5 of them arrived before the lair of Blood Demon Church. The 3 of you have to take action first, Jian Wushuang said. Don't worry about it. Real god Baiying, real god Yintuo, and Fiery King immediately moved forward. Jian Wushuang and real god Longqing hid behind. very quickly. Hong! The terrifying roar was heard from the void in the front, and boundless crimson God burst out. It tore an opening in the protective array of Blood Demon Church. In the lair of Blood Demon Church, it instantly stirred a commotion. Who is it? A roar reverberated in the universe along with angry voices. Ha ha, giblets of Blood Demon Church. You exterminated the Fiery family 3 million years ago, and I, Fiery King, have come back to take revenge. A laugh with tremendous momentum and a tinge of madness rang across the universe like thunder. Jian Wushuang could recognize Fiery King's voice the moment he heard it. As for whatever Fiery King had said about 3 million years, it was merely a random excuse that he had made up. There were countless powers and tribes that Blood Demon Church had exterminated in Blood Demon World. They reckoned they themselves didn't know if they had exterminated the Fiery family. Naturally, they thought Fiery King was simply there to take revenge. Hong, in Blood Demon Church, Real God Bayang, Real God In Tua, and Fiery King spread their ferocious aura, especially Real God Bayang and Real God In Tua, as they were two eternal real gods. 3 experts barging in, and the experts in Blood Demon Church felt as though it was the end of the world. The team immediately exploded, and all the real gods launched attacks wantonly. The universe gods had no room to interfere. Blood Demon Church was naturally in utter confusion and chaos. At that very moment, Jian Wushuang, who was waiting near the lair of Blood Demon Church, squinted his eyes. Real God Longqing, let's move, Jian Wushuang said. Let me reign in my aura. The few real gods in Blood Demon Church were flustered at the sudden attack by Real God Bayang and the others. I think they won't have the time to probe carefully, so they shouldn't be able to notice me, Real God Longqing said. That's great, let's go. Jian Wushuang and Universe God Longqing immediately turned into flowing light and passed through the opening of Blood Demon Church's protective array to enter into Blood Demon Church. Then Jian Wushuang took out the route map that Elder Shuiyang had drawn earlier, and he plunged in the direction where ancient Demon Mountain was located. Although they had met many cultivators of Blood Demon Church on the way, the universe gods in Blood Demon Church were fleeing in a panic, helter-skelter. They didn't even bother to look at Jian Wushuang and Real God Longqing. Even when they saw them, they would only treat them as people in Blood Demon Church. As for the real gods in Blood Demon Church who were fighting in the void, they were even more unlikely to notice them. Jian Wushuang and Real God Longqing entered the depth of Blood Demon Church without hindrance. Ancient Demon Mountain, it's there. Jian Wushuang lifted his head and looked up at the ancient lofty peak at the end of his field of vision. That peak was ancient Demon Mountain, also where Lord Leng stayed. Jian Wushuang and Real God Longqing were approaching ancient Demon Mountain at a terrifying speed. In the Black Palace on ancient Demon Mountain, Leng, this is the 7-star moon warbler lotus. I've put in a great effort and finally got it. A stony-faced young man in a luxurious purple long robe flashed an enchanting smile while sitting before Lord Leng. He was holding the 7-star moon warbler lotus in his hand. Looking at the 7-star moon warbler lotus, Lord Leng's eyes glistened and smiled. Thank you, Your Highness Mu Hong. Don't mention it. The stony-faced man, His Highness Mu Hong, looked at Lord Leng with passion in his eyes. Leng, I am quite free recently, and I'd like to keep you company in Blood Demon Church. I wonder if it's okay. Your Highness Mu Hong, you must be joking. With your background, you can go wherever you like. If you were to want to stay in Blood Demon Church, would there be anyone who would chase you away? Blood Demon Church Master doesn't have the guts to. Lord Leng smiled and replied, Ha! So you agree. His Highness Muhong immediately beamed with joy. Just then, Hong, a vigorous roar was heard from afar, and the few people in the Black Palace were frightened. What happened? His Highness Muhong's face changed slightly. It's Blood Demon Church. There were 3 real gods that barged in. They seem to be there to take revenge, and they are fighting the Blood Demon Church Master now, a chubby red-haired middle-aged man behind His Highness Muhong replied. Is that so? His Highness Muhong nodded. Blood Demon Church worked for them and had made so many enemies. When the enemies had no power, they naturally could only hold back. Whenever they grew stronger, they would return to take revenge. It was very normal. His Highness Blood Demon Church Master sent a message and said that the enemy is too strong. They couldn't stand it any longer. They'd like to ask your Highness for help, the chubby, middle-aged man said. Humph, I just got here. I have no time to bother with this affair. Tell him to figure it out himself, and that he has to take care of it soon. If it were to interrupt long, and I'd kill him. His Highness Muhong sounded cold. Let me tell him, now, the chubby middle-aged man was going to reply. Something's wrong, the old lady in a black robe behind Lord Leng said in a hoarse voice. Chapter 1553, Redstone Prison. Chapter 1553, Redstone Prison. What's wrong? His Highness Muhong and the fat, middle-aged man looked toward the old married woman. Someone has entered the spell that I have placed, the black-robed old married woman said. Oh, His Highness Muhong frowned and shot a glance toward the fat middle-aged man who was beside him. Go and take a look. Understood. With a change of his body, the fat, middle-aged man disappeared from the palace. Number 7, you go as well? Leng Zunzhu instructed. The black-robed old married man's figure also disappeared from the palace. Jian Wushuang and real god Long Qing had just reached the void around the ancient demon mountain. The moment they arrived, they were caught within a spell. Such a spell was simple. Hence, Jian Wushuang and real god Long Qing broke the spell quickly. However, at that moment, swish, a shadow appeared at the void in front of them. It was the fat middle-aged man, universe god. The fat middle-aged man first swept his eyes across Jian Wushuang, and he revealed a surprised expression. However, after that, he took a look at real god Long Qing, and his eyes shrank hastily. Jian Wushuang, looks like there are some mistakes in your information. There are other real gods present within the Blood Demon Church. Moreover, he should be a very powerful, eternal real god. Real god Long Qing said. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded his head slightly and said immediately, I will leave this eternal real god to you. Ha! Leave it to me. Real god Long Qing laughed heartily, and a scarlet long spear appeared in his hands. Swoosh! With a flash of his body which looked like teleportation, real god Long Qing appeared beside the fat middle-aged man. The scarlet long spear in his hands then stabbed abruptly. Boom! The void collapsed at once. The whole universe was drawn in by the scarlet spear instantly, and in no time, the whole boundless universe headed toward the fat middle-aged man with great power. Such frightening power changed into an ear-piercing sound explosion. Kill! 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 Although real god Long Qing did not open his mouth, Jian Wushuang and the fat middle-aged man who were near the area seemed to have heard hysterical shouting sounds, shouting kill. A chaotic real god. The fat middle-aged man's expression changed greatly, and he immediately swung his fat palms. Following his swing, a giant mountain appeared in front of him at once. The mountain was golden in color, and it gave off an ancient vibe. The mountain was then used to block the attack of the scarlet long spear. However, at the next moment, the lofty mountain crumbled into pieces instantly. Even the ground, which was connected to it, caved in as if it had completely disappeared. What shocking power! This is a chaotic real god. Jian Wushuang revealed an astonished expression. He had seen real gods fighting before. However, those real gods were merely normal real gods of the first stage. As for chaotic real gods who were at the third stage, he had seen Lei Chao killing a real god before. However, as Lei Chao was very powerful, and the real gods who he was killing were too weak, he was not able to tell the difference. However, at the very moment after seeing real god Longqing's attack, he understood how frightening a chaotic real god was. He was very certain that it was lucky that the real god who stood in front of real god Longqing was a very powerful eternal real god. If it were a void real god, who was at the first stage, with a stab from real god Longqing, he would probably be able to kill tens of them. Humph! With a cold shout, the fat, middle-aged man retreated quickly, and his expression also became ghostly pale. Trying to escape, real god Longqing was filled with murderous intent. However, at the moment when real god Longqing chased the fat, middle-aged man, a figure appeared behind Jian Wushuang quietly. Swoosh! A dim light came out of the fingertips of the figure and headed towards Jian Wushuang's neck. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang's body changed, and he avoided the dim light easily. He actually dodged it. The black-robed old married woman, who became visible, was surprised when she saw what had happened. It should be known that she was an eternal real god. Even though she had launched a surprise attack on a universe god abruptly, she had still failed to kill him. Jian Wushuang's blood mountain sword had already appeared in his hands, and his icy cold eyes looked toward the black-robed old married woman. Another one. Seems like it's another eternal real god. Jian Wushuang was shocked. It was obvious that there were more hidden experts in the Blood Demon Church than he had expected. Little kid, a universe god like you actually dares to come here? Aren't you very gutsy? The black-robed old married woman laughed with a hoarse voice. After that, she lifted the sleeves of her robe and revealed 10 pitch-black, wizened fingers which were below the sleeves of her robe. At that very moment, the 10 fingers were filled with dim light, and in no time, rustle, rustle, rustle. A total of 10 rays of light shot out at the same time. Humph! Jian Wushuang gave a cold shout, and his body dashed forward fiercely. Swish! A total of 18 shadows appeared at the same time. Jian Wushuang's body was like a ghost which passed through the void hastily. At the same time, he also bypassed the dim lights, and in the blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of the black-robed old married woman. Crimson light! His sword light glowed as if it were crimson lightning, and it headed straight for the black-robed old married woman's neck. Compared to back, when he was in Wu Bei's cave, the power of the crimson lightning that Jian Wushuang had unleashed at that very moment had risen considerably. In particular, its speed had become about twice as fast. This martial art motion, the black-robed old married woman revealed an astonished expression. After that, the 5 fingers on one of her hands changed into a sharp claw at once and headed toward the crimson lightning. Clang! A sound resembling the sounds of metal clashing could be heard, and the black-robed old married woman's body floated backwards. At the same time, she revealed a smile. I see. No wonder his abilities are so impressive. It was obvious that the black-robed old married woman had already figured out Jian Wushuang's identity. However, at that very moment, bam, it was another loud sound. A short distance away, the fat middle-aged man was spitting out many mouthfuls of blood continuously from his mouth. His aura then became weaker in an instant. Such a scene had caused the eyes of the black-robed, old married woman to shrink. At the next moment, boom, imposing divine power, which could blot out the sky, burst forth from her body and headed toward the universe. The divine power came together at the void and transformed into red giant stones. The giant stones then stacked onto and pressed against each other, forming a giant prison that was completely made up of red giant stones. Moreover, the prison had many red walls, and in a split second, the red walls isolated Jian Wushuang and real god Long Qin completely. Taking advantage of the moment that the red stone prison was forming, the black-robed old married woman and the fat middle-aged man retreated immediately. Jian Wushuang frowned and looked around him. He was currently in a corridor which was formed by the red giant stones, and red walls stood on both sides of him. Moreover, the red stone walls were strange, as they even blocked off his soul power. Break! Jian Wushuang unleashed an unreasonable amount of strength with the intent to break the red stone walls. However, the hardness of the red stone walls had completely exceeded his expectations. A stroke with his power had only managed to leave a sword mark that was neither big nor small on the red stone walls. Moreover, the sword mark closed up again in a split second,